Are you guys ready for another Nintendo Prime podcast? Episode 11. How's it going, everyone? Welcome to the Nintendo Prime podcast episode 11. We had a lot of technical difficulties to start the stream. Hopefully, everything's working. It better be. If it's not, I am going to strangle a deer tomorrow. I'm going to go out in the woods. I'm going to find one, and I'm just going to...
There's plenty of them in Wisconsin.
No, there's a lot of them. I mean, I can find them on the side of the road half dead, so...
Yeah.
Thank you guys for sticking by those that were here through our technical difficulties. If you're catching this after the fact, congratulations. I probably trimmed it out. So, welcome to episode 11 of the Nintendo Prime Podcast. We got a lot to talk about this week. We got E3 stuff happening, so that's a big thing. Nintendo announced their E3 plans today. We also have a crap load of Switch Pro news, because all of the Switch Pro stuff happened after last week's podcast. So we have a lot
You got
to
the
go
auto-tune
over.
on, bro.
I know I do. I love auto-tune.
Yeah.
I love auto-tune.
Why not?
Auto-tune's my friend.
Why not?
Auto-tune's my friend. And the thing is, our guests can't hear the auto-tune.
Yeah. No, I know.
because it doesn't go to them that way. So, anyways, auto-tuning it up. This is how it goes. If you guys think this is entertaining, just wait till you see everything that goes wrong during E3. Wait till you see everything that goes wrong. Speaking of things going wrong, oh my gosh, it kind of works, except I'm in a low FPS at the moment.
Wow.
I'm in a low frame rate. So we will get this fixed. This is another camera. I've been having some issues with some of the cameras here. I want to see if this works. Eric, let me switch to your camera quick. How's Eric doing?
I'm way too high.
Yeah. Well, not that. That I can fix that. That's all I'm worried about. I'm worried about your frame rate.
I can't go any lower.
You're looking good. You're looking good. You know who's going to look perfect on camera?
Oh,
our guests.
I guess. Which
I mean, the guests look amazing. Our guests today,
We should
by the
now
way,
introduce them.
are AndresRestart and FiveJay Gaming. Say hi, guys.
Hey guys, what's up?
That's finger guns. Yeah. Yeah.
Hopefully my audio is sounding good because everyone in the chat was saying that I was sounding quiet. So let me know if it sounds about as well as everyone else.
Hopefully things are going good. They said cute cam on Eric. Let's go back to the Eric cam quick.
What?
It's
What is
cute.
this?
It's cute. It's
All
cute. All right. So how you guys doing today? I'm gonna take off the glasses because obviously we didn't get off to as cool of a start as I wanted to today. We got a packed show for you guys. If you're listening to the audio version, hey, good for you, because I'm gonna edit out all the bad crap and you won't even
good for you because the video version's a little bit.
Video version's a
out
little
there.
rough, but we have a lot of testing. So, as Eric was noting before, and we'll note now that because that part's trimmed out, is that we are doing a lot of testing. Every stream we do, especially when we have guests on, so like a podcast, it is a time for us to test things for our E3 setup. And when obviously we had audio issues, now the audio issues are fixed. Now I know how I fixed them. Now I need to hope that it stays fixed. Another thing I notice now is obviously when I switch to the camera on me, I'm not in a good frame rate right now. I got to figure out why the camera's not putting out a good frame rate. But, you know, it is what it is. We'll figure out these technical difficulties as they go. That camera literally just arrived today. I'm sure there's some settings and stuff I need to mess with because I've already messed with all the settings on here. And that one just likes to show Eric's chesticles because that's how we roll. So let's get into the actual show, shall we? So, Eric, I believe before we were so kindly reminded that we don't have audio really working for the guests very well in a listenable way. What are we going to talk about first? E3, 2021, Nintendo stuff, or are we going to talk about Switch Pro first?
Ooh.
Let me know. What are we talking about first?
Let's go with the actual stuff we know first.
So the facts.
The facts first.
Facts are the Switch Pro is getting announced tomorrow.
There you go.
Not disputable at all.
Ooh. Okay. Let's go that route then. I like that route too.
So you
I
should
don't
go.
actually know that, by the way.
Yeah.
I'm just kind of thinking.
All right. So
Well, his uncle works at Nintendo though, so
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
That's how it goes. So, all right. You want to start with the facts. The facts are that Nintendo announced E3 today, right? They announced what they're doing, sort of. They at least announced when they're going to be at E3. They're going to be at E3 on June 15th at 9 a.m. Pacific, which is 11 a.m. My time. I'm Central Time, 12 noon, basically, Eastern, I believe. So that's all great. That's when they're going to go. They're going to go on June 15th, which is the last day of E3. On that day, ESA previously announced that they are going to do an award show which I presume is going to take place after Nintendo's done.
You would hope.
But I don't actually know, because there's some interesting parts to what's happening and how Nintendo's doing this, and why it might almost feel like they're not at E3, because they have a 40-minute show, and then they're going to follow it up immediately with 3 hours of Nintendo Treehouse. That's all they announced, by the way. They didn't tease a game. They didn't tease a tournament. They didn't tease anything other than saying, hey, it's going to focus on software exclusively for the Nintendo Switch, and most of it's in 2021. Now, most means, they're going to talk about something in 2022. Maybe it'll be a new game reveal. Maybe it's just because they want to talk about Splatoon 3, and so that's a 2022 game. Pokemon Legends Arceus is a 2022 game. Yeah. So it could just be known quantities already for 2022, or it could be something new. But obviously, we need to know the lineup the rest of this year, because when it comes to just Nintendo's involvement, we have Skyward Sword in July, Pokemon in November. Everything in between that's coming out that we're aware of right now are all third-party games. Shin Megami Tensei 5.
I want to point one thing out.
Sure.
Skyward Sword and Pokemon Brilliant Diamond Shining Pearl are remasters and remakes. So in terms of brand new, internally published Nintendo games, there's nothing. It's all just remasters and remakes right now.
Plus, the remaster of that Pokemon game wasn't even done by Game Freak. So even more outside of the realm of reality. So, true. Yeah, there's this is the facts, right? So they have to have a lot to talk about. And Jason Schreier, a video game journalist out there, put out there on Twitter today, hey, look, it sounds like Nintendo is going to be the company that carry 2021, because all these other companies have been announcing a bunch of game delays. Heck, even Horizon Forbidden West for Sony might not even make this holiday and get delayed. So it seems like because of COVID, Nintendo actually might be the company carrying the game industry for a little bit. But we'll have to wait and see what's actually announced and what's actually coming out before we can officially say that. And unfortunately, we do have to wait till the end of E3 for it. Now, that is happening. That's the fact. That's the technical only fact we know, because everything else comes from people who have heard things. Now, the people who have heard things, some of them are legit. Takahashi Machizuki, stuff like that. People are actual journalists with real sources, and it would massively hurt their reputations if they were wrong on the stuff they're saying. It could cost them jobs, all that kind of stuff. People who get busted in lies get in trouble, especially when you're working at like Bloomberg. So, got reputations on the line here. Well, we're not going to get the Switch Pro yet. Let's stop at the E3 stuff, because we've been talking E3 rumors for weeks, maybe even months at this point, right? At least hopes, dreams, Samus Hunter, other crap that's been thrown out there. Which, fun fact, there was something that Samus Hunter inferred would happen at E3 that hasn't been confirmed. And now you wonder if it's going to happen at all. Things like the Splatoon 3 tournament, the Smash Bros. Tournament. Things like she guaranteed Breath of the Wild would be there. And those the games she guaranteed would be there could technically still be there. But she said something along the lines that Nintendo would be doing stuff like every day of E3, and they're not, at least officially. And what's interesting about how Nintendo's handling E3 is they're streaming everything on their channels. Which, okay, fine, right? That's what they do every year. They stream Treehouse on their channel. They stream their own stuff on their channel. But the ESA is running a show. Now, I presume the ESA is not going to have anything going on during the show, and they're just going to restream or co-stream whatever Nintendo's doing, at least for the 40-minute part. But what happens if they decide we don't want to stream the 3-hour Treehouse, and they just decide to go do their own things, and suddenly we have competing streams of E3 content? That's something that could happen. But again, we don't know, because the ESA has not actually announced the full E3 schedule as well. Maybe all that's left to do that day is the awards. Because think about it, if Nintendo's going right away in the morning, because that's probably going to be the first thing in the morning, because they always run out Pacific time, because the ESA is located on the West Coast.
Yes. So
they always go off that time zone anyway. So if they're starting at 9, we'll be probably starting our stream at 7. You'll have your stuff whenever you're doing it. AndresRestart. I know FiveJay, you don't really do much. Maybe you'll tune into mine. Maybe you'll tune into my stream. We'll see. Maybe bring your little one on. Let him see what a Nintendo Prime stream is all about.
Yeah.
While he's too young to see some of the inappropriate things I might be doing at times. Actually, I'm going to keep it pretty PG dirty E3 for the most part. I can't guarantee my audience will, but that's a different story. So let's just start there. What do we actually think Nintendo's going to do in this time slot? Well, actually, before we get that, are we disappointed that they're just doing what they always do? They always go on a Tuesday. They always go at 9. They always follow it up with hours of Treehouse. But instead of there being 3 more days of Treehouse, there aren't 3 more days of E3. There's 1 day. And obviously, we have to wait till the end of E3 basically this year because it's a digital event to hear from Nintendo. Like, what do we think about that? Did we expect it to be on a different day?
So I'll tell you this. If you watch my videos and my podcast, I've kind of like debated different days throughout. But I've mentioned this several times. I scheduled 1 day off a few months in advance for that week. 1 single day off, and that day that was off that I scheduled months ago was June 15th. So I always kind of expected it to be that day, Tuesday. I don't know why, but it just seems like Nintendo likes doing things on a Tuesday. Yeah, it's gonna end the show, right? But I'll tell you, because it's like the end and because it's just the direct and then Treehouse footage, I think the ESA is gonna allow Nintendo just to have that exclusive 4-hour time slot just to themselves. They will have the limelight. And then, as you said, because it starts early in the day, there will be time afterwards to do all the review stuff. Maybe they cut into it, but I kind of don't expect them to. And maybe that's why it's only 3 hours, just so they can fit into a certain time slot, so they can get all the spotlight, and then they can talk about other things afterwards during the official E3 streams.
Yeah, I think that's I don't know. Here's the thing, like, we don't know what the actual ESA schedule is, and it's highly possible that Nintendo could be part of that schedule still as well. They could do developer interviews for already announced games. Like I could see, like, as an example, Mario Golf Super Rush getting featured before that final day in an interview kind of setting or something like that, or a gameplay setting with Greg Miller and the hosts and all that as a possibility. I think it's going to be interesting too as well, just for E3 in general. Obviously, how much of it's actually live and how much of it's all pre-recorded. We presume a lot of the press conferences are pre-recorded, but then you have all this, the hosts and all that. Is all that pre-done ahead of time and pre-done and not actually live? Is Treehouse even going to be live? Like, or is it all going to be pre-recorded? That's something to consider as well. Because one thing that was always kind of cool about Nintendo Treehouse, at least in my opinion, was every now and then they would acknowledge a couple comments from the live chat, right? They would kind of bring them up. They would they'd have people off camera cherry picking, you know, a very family-friendly comment that would probably make people laugh, or at least they thought would make people laugh. Usually, I gotta say, they're pretty lame, but I guess, you know, they gotta consider that they might have kiddos watching, so they gotta keep it on the down low. We don't gotta do that here at Nintendo Prime, but you guys will be leaving comments that I'm sure I'll read off that your children probably shouldn't be present for.
Oops.
So yeah, I think I'm okay with the Tuesday. That is obviously the safe date. If there was any safe bet to make for E3, bet they go on the same day at the same time they've been doing every single E3 as far back as I can remember. I think the only reason people thought they might go sooner is, one, Microsoft is on Sunday. So they're, you know, and Microsoft's gone early before, but they're on Sunday. E3 itself starts on a weekend. And, you know, press conferences we've had like go on weekends before, but we don't have an actual like show to look at after the fact. We don't have an expo. So, you know, there was some thought process that maybe Nintendo would do it different. Plus just the whole fact we don't know a lot about Nintendo games, and I think we're just impatient. But hey, we have a date, we have a time. It's 40 minutes. They're calling it a Nintendo Direct. No digital event, no nothing, just straight up a Nintendo Direct. 3 hours of gameplay. Let's see some games. That's what I'm excited for. And the thing is, like, it's starting to take shape. Like, it was just announced today as well. Digital Devolver is doing their little shindig on the opening day of E3. Which,
nice.
If you guys have not seen Devolver, I said Digital Devolver. I think it's Devolver Digital.
Yeah,
Either way,
yeah.
They put on one of the best E3 shows every single year.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Even if you don't like the games, the show is extremely entertaining. So yeah,
It has like a storyline, which is
yes,
Yeah.
it's like a mini movie.
Yeah.
And it like continues year to year to year. But yet, if you didn't see prior ones, you can still kind of get what's going on.
Yeah.
And I'm telling you guys, they're going to set the bar up here, and we'll see if anyone else can really match it. Obviously, people are really going to be looking at Microsoft, really going to be looking at Nintendo. But obviously, there's Ubisoft there. Square Enix is having a presence as well. You know, there's going to be other companies that haven't announced yet, Sega and WB. And are they going to do like a combo events, or are they just going to have like individual announcements throughout the event? Basically, there should be something fun going on at all times, and if there isn't, we'll have something fun going on here to make up for the fact that maybe, just maybe, we got to. I put it this way: I don't trust the ESA to create a consistently entertaining show, all digital
What?
for 4
Come
straight
on.
days, because let's just be honest, we can't even trust the individual game companies making press conferences to keep them consistently entertaining for all the days that we have press conferences. So if the companies can't do it, I don't know how the ESA is going to pull it off. Maybe it will be, and then we'll be stuck extra streaming 5 hours after every single one to do all our giveaways and all our competitions because it is so entertaining and we have to do it. But yeah, let's. Eric, what are your thoughts on this? Are you fine with the day and time? Were you hoping they went sooner?
No, I'm not surprised at all. It's Nintendo. Nintendo's gonna Nintendo, and I'm totally not caught off guard by this. And yeah, that's what else is there to say? I mean, it's really Nintendo's gonna Nintendo.
FiveJay, you got any additional thoughts?
Yeah, I think they like to be the showstopper, you know? I think that they're like so good at building hype, you know, even if the games don't always deliver, they're the masters of the one last thing. So they really like that last slot so that they can throw that out there, and then they're the last bit of hype post E3 where everyone goes, "Well, Nintendo just stole the show." Did they? I don't know. It could have just been the last exciting thing that you heard, and so that's what's sticking in your mind the most. But they are very good at building that hype. So unless what they announce isn't good stuff, I think the time slot's great. I'm excited for it.
I think what's also important to consider is Nintendo has always teased something. Usually when they announce their E3, something. There hasn't been any teasing, which tells me that we might have more teasing coming up. We might have a big announcement coming up as well, but we might have actual games teased, maybe from that announcement, that tune into E3 to find out more, kind of thing. So before we get into the Switch Pro stuff, because I think we could end up talking about that for hours and hours and hours, because there's just so much to talk about. Let's just briefly go over just some realistic expectations for what we're going to see out of Nintendo at E3. Since this is the big day that we've been waiting a month for, basically, for them to finally tell us when are they actually going to tell us about their E3 stuff. So let's go to FiveJay, because I haven't heard from you in ages, man. What give me some realistic expectations for Nintendo at E3 this year.
Well, gee, I've been a little out of the loop, so hopefully I got something for you. I think when they're talking about mostly 2021 stuff, and that's great and everything, but then that means for sure they're saying something outside of 2021. I don't know what everyone's consensus is around when Breath of the Wild is releasing, but to me that seems like the obvious choice for something that's probably coming out next year that they would definitely be talking about during E3 this year. I would realistic is a hard tag on there because you know we always go wild with our thoughts. I just want to hear them say something about Metroid, something good. I don't want to hear any more. We started over again. Now we need to hire new, top level management on the game. I just want to hear that they are making progress. Okay, that they didn't scrap the project. I don't know if that's realistic or not. And then a lot of my stuff is all just like, I just want a new F-Zero. I just want, you know what I mean? So
The little, you know what? Okay, FiveJay, give us your wish list. Come on.
okay, I mean, we already know about Splatoon 3. That's great. That's awesome. But what about ARMS 2? I really enjoyed ARMS. I don't know about you guys, but it was like they thought, let's make a Punch-Out game, but let's really go nuts with it. So I really want to see what else they can do with ARMS. So ARMS 2, big on my wish list. I definitely want to see that. All the Dead franchises, obviously, F-Zero and like Pilot Wings, Advance Wars, that kind of stuff would be great. But honestly, I really want to see them come up with a new IP again. Because whenever they make something new, like Splatoon and ARMS and stuff, it's so creative. So yes, looking forward to Zelda and Metroid and Donkey Kong. We haven't heard that in a while, kind of things. Star Fox. But I really want to see some new IP. Something
Well,
with
let me
that
ask you a
Nintendo
question.
feel.
How would you feel if Monolith Soft announced a new IP? Like, what
Ooh.
would you sort of expect from them besides Xenoblade, obviously?
Well, I'm big fan of Xenoblade, so I would definitely be excited. I'd be curious. I mean, I would assume it'd be an RPG, and Nintendo doesn't have a ton of RPG under their belts. You know, like we had Golden Sun, and that was awesome, but DS, last time we saw one of those, and that took a big break since its GBA releases before that. So I would love to see some sort of new RPG come. And if Monolith is making something other than an RPG, whoa, well, that's perhaps even more intriguing. What are they going to come up with? They're a great developer in my book, so I would love that. Love
Yeah,
it.
I think they have. I think whatever they do is going to be for sure like pretty sick.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Especially if
Yeah.
they harness, you know, the horsepower of the system. Of course, we're all like Switch Pro, Switch Pro. We'd love to see Monolith really take a Switch Pro and push it to the limits, but anything they do would be great.
Yeah.
Other than that, I mean, you're gonna see a little bit of Splatoon 3. You're gonna see a little bit of, you know, hopefully again a new IP, like everybody else has said here. That's that would be amazing. Yeah, I mean, I just maybe it's more Zelda. I mean, more actual releases of like a remake of Ocarina of Time, uh, Majora's Mask, things like that. That would be awesome. Because I'm again now really fully getting into the games of Zelda. I want to start playing most of them. I'd like to really see, but again, this is probably not going to come from Nintendo. This is probably going to come more from Ubisoft. But a Mario plus Rabbids Kingdom Battle 2. That's something I want to see,
Yes.
or some sort of Rabbids game. Whether it's Mario, whether it's a different character, whether it's something along the lines of that, but that would be awesome to see as well.
Yeah, I think it's important that a lot of the things you talked about definitely I feel like are happening. There's been some low rumblings out there about a Mario plus Rabbids Kingdom Battle 2. The first one sold extremely well. Everyone seems happy about it, and the
just beat
team
it, by the
behind
way.
it was very, very passionate about that project. They were very much. I mean, the guy literally cried when Miyamoto came on stage with Yu's Gimon because it's just such a big deal to them because they look up to someone like, I mean, who doesn't look up to someone like Shigeru Miyamoto? He made almost every game developer's childhood. So it's just amazing to think that we could get another one like that. I obviously would like to see them maybe expand a little bit beyond that. I mean, I've always wanted like a Zelda and Rabbids or a Metroid and Rabbids. Or
Ooh,
like
Metroid
I don't
Rabbids
know,
would be cool.
like I don't know how Metroid would even work because I don't know how Rabbids. They can just slap Rabbids in anything, and I'd probably be happy. I actually like the Rabbids.
Yeah.
Not everybody I know is a big fan of Rabbids, but when it comes to Nintendo, I guess from my side of things, I think there's some basic expectations you can have that are probably pretty safe. Will we see Splatoon 3 again? Probably, maybe. They did announce it this year. It looked pretty far along just based on the initial announcement. It definitely wasn't like a Metroid Prime 4 logo teaser. It actually showed what looked like potential gameplay, maybe. I know they said, in engine or whatever, but it kind of looked like it was potential gameplay. So that is definitely something that, could we see more of that, especially if it's early 2022? Absolutely. And obviously, you mentioned at the beginning, and your audio was muted for a brief moment. Obviously, Breath of the Wild 2. I think everyone and their mother expects to see this game because we haven't seen it in 2 years. And Eiji and Nomu said, "Oh yeah, well, we need a little bit more time. We'll tell you about it later this year." Well, it's later this year, and we still haven't heard about it. And it's Zelda's 35th anniversary. And yeah, Skyward Sword HD is great, and I'm sure we're gonna see that. That's like a guarantee. They'll show another trailer or at least play it on Treehouse, if nothing else. But it's like, but Breath of the Wild 2, you can't just keep hiding that from us. The last one sold 23 million copies on Switch alone. On Switch alone. You can't, like, you can't, all the Zelda fans know, like, okay, yeah, it's going to overshadow, it already overshadows Skyward Sword just because we know it exists.
Right.
So it's like just spill the beans. At least a trailer. I want it to be like, I kind of expect a trailer and a release date or a release year. Like if they say 2022, fine. Not what I want to hear, but whatever. At least give me an expectation of when we can maybe play the game potentially, even if that expectation is like an 18-month window or whatever. I don't know. Just I just want to see the game again. I want a new trailer. And what's always interesting is a lot of things in the initial Zelda reveal trailers don't actually make it into the final game. So it's kind of curious to see, like, did that stuff from the initial reveal trailer, is that, like, all, that seemed very story heavy. Is that stuff going to be still in the game, or did they completely change directions?
Yeah, what if it's like a Twilight Princess situation, right? Remember when we saw like that early footage for Twilight Princess? It was what, an E3 2004 trailer, and then when the game came out 2006, 2.5 years later, similar sort of window there. A lot of things that were in that initial trailer were all gone. It was almost like a different game. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see what we actually see.
Yeah, and the thing is, like, even if you go by that, like Breath of the Wild, the initial reveal trailer for that, the entire overworld landscape changed from what we saw in that reveal trailer. It's like, okay, cool. What's happening now? Is this stuff you...
I told you about my theory.
Oh, boy.
About the initial Breath of the Wild trailer.
Nope, let's go. Let's hear it.
Oh, boy.
Let's hear
Okay,
it.
Here we go.
It's not... Okay, it's more of a fun idea, okay? And I think there's some truth to it, but not like 100% true. So the initial Zelda U trailer, right? Remember, what was it? E3 2014? AJ Numa was like on a green screen, right? And he was talking about the conventions and foundations of Zelda, and then he pops on that big sprawling world with the mist and the mountains and the green hills, and he's like, beautiful, right? Or something like that. And then we see the Guardian come out of nowhere and chase Link, and then he sort of pops off the hood, and then everyone thought it was a girl, but it never was. That trailer, yeah. That's what you were talking about, Nate. Like it wasn't really what we got in Breath of the Wild. Like a lot changed sort of since then. Now, like there are obviously some things done in terms of like aesthetic choices and such that make Breath of the Wild look really good, but there is a lot going on in that world that isn't in Breath of the Wild. Like the villagers and the way the mist was working and with the mountains and the coloring and the lighting and the windmills and things of that nature. Like it almost seemed like a world that wasn't necessarily like a apocalyptic or post-apocalyptic Hyrule. It seemed like a pre-apocalyptic Hyrule almost. So my thinking is that with Breath of the Wild 2, they will have had the time and the resources to kind of choose to not make a post-apocalyptic Hyrule, but a Hyrule that has more of a living, breathing environment, perhaps with villagers and like little sheeps like grazing the hills, and obviously more graphical effects like that really cool fog and mist they had. It's a different world, so I just kind of wonder if, like with Breath of the Wild 2, perhaps to get closer to that initial vision they had. And obviously it'll be presented better, perhaps with higher resolutions and things of that nature and more in there. But it's just kind of interesting when you take a look at the Zelda U trailer. There were a lot of things that they perhaps suggested they wanted to do. Some of it was accomplished, but not entirely everything was accomplished. For example, the environments were destructible. We have it to some extent, but like you can't like break bridges, you can't break stone monuments. What if in Breath of the Wild 2 you can? So I'm just saying, like, I feel like there are some ideas they were playing around with at the time that they weren't able to actually execute with the initial Breath of the Wild. But with Breath of the Wild 2, they just might. So that's my sort of idea about the initial Zelda U trailer.
Yeah, I honestly think that makes a lot of sense to me. I've always had a lot of wild speculation about all of the Zelda games that get these trailers to announce them, but then we don't really see anything after, or don't see a lot of those initial. I mean, you know, you brought up the Twilight Princess one. I mean, gosh, did that not just look like an out of this world Zelda game? Big, giant, epic, open field battles, and then obviously being able to explore a dense and mysterious forest and walking through. None of that happens in the game. It's like a bunch of ideas they had that they just, for one reason or another, couldn't actually realize as they got deeper into development. But a great teaser. I mean, that's why the Princess teaser was one of the greatest moments in E3 history, which is crazy when we think about we're heading into another E3. What's going to be that moment this year? What's going to be that moment that captures everyone? Because Breath of the Wild 2 is kind of that expected thing, but can they still wow us with it? Can they still do, like, it was a wow when they announced the sequel was coming 2 years ago. Because, like, hey, DLC just happened not that long ago, and a sequel? But then, okay, it's still been a couple years. Okay, so it still was a couple years away, 2-3 years away. So we'll see. We'll see what that's going to do, what that's going to be. To FiveJay's hopes and dreams, man, I do think we are going to see some Metroid. I don't know what. I don't know if it's for Prime Trilogy, if we're gonna finally get a teaser for Prime 4, even if they Here's the problem. Here's the problem. I'm gonna tell you guys right now, if they give us a teaser for Prime 4, but they say 2023 on it, which I think would be like worst case scenario at the end, they go 2023. I don't even care because I saw it and I know it exists. And that's what I need to know right now. They announced this thing in 2017 and rebooted development halfway through. I need to just know it exists. Okay.
Yes.
Oh, great. Retro Studios is hiring all these big talent. But okay, I need to see the game.
Yeah.
Like, I don't care if it's still years away. Let me know it's real. Don't just give me another title splash screen. Show me, even if it's just like a 15-second tease where Metroid's going up against Ridley or something. And it's just this epic thing, and it just looks completely different and so much more improved graphically than we've seen with other Metroid Prime games. And your mind's getting blown. All of a sudden, you get like the slow heartbeat. Do 2023. Yeah, that sucks, but it's also at least we know the game's actually being made. Now, I think 2D Metroid, I think, is something that's actually going to happen for legit.
Awesome. Yes,
there's been Mercury Steam did the Samus Returns remake. It seems to be out there that Nintendo has likely tabbed them again. They liked what they did with Samus Returns. They didn't like the sales of Samus Returns. And Nintendo, I think, internally realized, well, the sales of Samus Returns sucked because Switch was out. And in hindsight, we probably should have pushed this game over to Switch in HD, and it probably would have at least performed on the level of like a Yoshi game or a Kirby game. It probably would have did okay. Definitely better than it did on 3DS at the time, because it just bombed on 3DS.
I do love it though.
That is something that I do expect them to have some sort of 2D Metro game, and that's why I wonder, are they going to be like, okay, they give us the disappointing news that it's 2023 for Metroid Prime 4, but then be like, but hey, while you wait, we do have a new Metroid thing for you.
Yes.
So again, and now 2023 by his worst case scenario. Well, I think if they show it, it'll be 2022.
I mean, if it is 2023, like you say, it gives credence to my thought process that next year's E3 is Metroid themed.
Well, here's the thing: if Metroid Prime 4 could be a 2022 game, it'd be coming up towards the holidays, which would be a bit shocking because Metroid is not a big seller. So for Nintendo to push it as a holiday title would be a shocker.
Oh, maybe they're trying to boost it a little bit, so having it as like the main E3 game.
I'll say this: if it gets announced that Samus is going to Fortnite, which has been a leaked document from that court case going on, and that actually gets announced at E3. Okay, then I believe it that Nintendo's actually trying to push.
Let me speak on that for a moment.
Oh.
So what's interesting about that, right? And this is all public information, right? Because we got that document, right?
Yeah.
Have you noticed that things that were in that document, even though they didn't come out at the time suggested within the document, they have still come to fruition to some extent? Like, obviously, we saw the Kratos and Master Chief thing, but that was already a known quantity by the time we got the document. But there were other things in there that now have become a reality. For example, there was Batman. Batman was added to Fortnite. There was LeBron James and other NBA players added to the game. Now, it isn't specifically LeBron James, but for the playoffs, they added a whole bunch of NBA players, and there is one model that looks similar to the model they were using to emulate LeBron James. So there's it's almost a pattern here. A lot of characters that were in that document, it didn't seem like we'd maybe get them, right? You could have chalked it up to, oh, they were planned but canceled. They came. So is it possible that Samus is another one of those characters that didn't come out as at the time they perhaps wanted it, but will eventually come once Nintendo's ready to announce Metroid? Maybe. There was also that weird thing. I saw Game Explain cover it a couple weeks ago. There was like this Fortnite concept art that had various characters, and there was one that had like a silhouette that looked like Samus. Not saying it's for sure, it was for sure meant to be Samus, but it was certainly a character that had those big, broad Mariah suit shoulders. So, there's some hope here, I think. A lot, actually.
Oh yeah, there's definitely hope. So we'll see what happens with that. And also, speaking of those documents, since you brought them up, this isn't necessarily, I think, going to get announced at Nintendo's thing. I think there's going to be a jump on this. in those documents, Nintendo redacted certain details about contract negotiations between Microsoft and Nintendo over xCloud coming to their system.
yeah.
That was redacted by Nintendo, so we don't even know the exact words. But it was when you redact something, it has to state what company requested the redaction and what the reasons were. And it was Nintendo who requested it, and the reason was because it reveals details of ongoing talks between Microsoft and Nintendo. My thing is, and obviously we know about the Switch being in the background of a bunch of Microsoft things, a major Microsoft event. It literally was prominent next to the Xbox Series X and the Xbox Series S, almost like it was Microsoft's system, but it's not. Which to me means one of the very first big announcements for Switch might not even happen at Microsoft or at Nintendo's conference, but at Microsoft instead, where they announce that xCloud is coming to Nintendo Switch. And I could see Nintendo letting them announce that because xCloud is Microsoft's baby.
Yeah.
Right.
And like that
That's
would be a huge get if they announce that. I mean, and imagine if they announce that and somehow Game Pass is going to come later down the line to it as well.
Boy.
That just, guys, Halo Infinite on your Switch, even if you got to plug it. And by the way, if a Switch Pro is a thing and has an Ethernet port, that's just going to make xCloud that much better. So I mean, oh man, I just the dreams there. And there's going to be other Nintendo announcements as well before Nintendo stuff, because Ubisoft is probably going to have something. All the traditional third-party companies that bring games over, Capcom's going to have a thing going on, so they'll have some announcements as well.
I really like the idea, if the xCloud does come to Switch, of playing, like, for example, the new Perfect Dark that's in development on a Nintendo Switch. Like,
Yes.
it makes sense, right? And maybe we could play it. There's other rare games that have already been like made. For example, there's a relatively recent Killer Instinct. I would love to play that. Like, it would just be interesting to see some of these rare IP that haven't been on Nintendo be playable on Switch via xCloud, especially if we can play them in 4K thanks to the Switch Pro. Like, that would just be a beauty. And I don't know. I feel like it's not. We don't know yet, right? But what could possibly make sense in terms of hype levels? Like, if you look at how they've been teasing it, this is bigger than just a singular sort of like Ori port, right? There's something more to it than that. It may just be like a bigger game release, like maybe like a Master Chief Collection, which would be still like crazy awesome. But xCloud, given that they were like presenting the Switch in the background for multiple official Xbox streams, when we know this company officially, like in an official capacity, has told us that they tease things in their backgrounds. It's being framed as if Switch is like another part of the family of systems for Xbox games. So when you look at it in that way, that's how they sort of present it in their streams in the background. Maybe they are teasing xCloud, right? That would just, I'm excited at the possibility of it, but I'm not assuming it because, potential disappointment.
I mean, the other thing it could be though too is we all think it's xCloud, and they all want us to think it's xCloud, but it turns out it's like Halo or something coming to Switch, and that's it.
That would still be.
That would still be huge.
Or like Halo and or like Master Chief and Smash or something like that. But that would be big enough. But I feel like if you're putting the Switch prominently in the background, on equal levels with your system,
right.
There's something that's on equal level with your system with.
I just think it'd be funny as hell if it's all just a giant troll scheme.
No.
It's not Halo Infinite. It's Halo Wars 3.
Oh. And we're out.
Oh, cool. Thanks, guys.
And thanks for coming on 5J. Click, gone.
And click. So obviously, Metroid, Zelda, I kind of think those are a little bit safe. Maybe Splatoon 3. Some other, maybe safe ones. There's something coming from the Mario team. I know Donkey Kong's been kind of the rumored thing that maybe that team's been working on. I know maybe they split off and made a whole new team. Maybe that's going to be dedicated to Donkey Kong moving forward. So it's Donkey Kong's 40th anniversary. It's one of the games that really got Nintendo kicked off into massive video game success. Yeah, they had the color TV before it. They had the Game & Watches and the other types of video game platforms out there. But really, success began with Donkey Kong in the arcades. That's what took off. That's what put Nintendo on the map as a video game maker, because Nintendo was a toy company, a handful not a card company. So they made a bunch of that stuff, and it kind of felt like their color TV and their handheld devices at that time were just extensions of them being a toy company. And then when Donkey Kong came along, it was like next level. Okay, people really like this. Maybe we should really lean into this whole new video game arcade thing. Maybe make a home console that doesn't just have the games already prepackaged on it like the color TV, and give you guys a way to load your own games in, hence the cartridges and all that jazz. So it's interesting that Donkey Kong's 40th is this year, and while never been a massive seller, they have had some sell up in the 8-9 million in the old Country series, that I think he's going to get some attention. I don't know if it's going to be a new game like it's been rumored and reported out there by several different leakers, or if it's going to end up being like, a Donkey Kong 40, and we're going to play the arcade game in the same way we played Mario 35, or the same way we played Tetris 99 and all that stuff, or Pac-Man 99, which is also really good. So it could just be one of those as well, because that could take it back to its roots. It could be that and something else as well. You can't dismiss that. And obviously them trying to somehow make Nintendo Switch Online seem like a good prospect. I don't think they've done a great job of that, but to each their own on that one. That's the thing. That's all my safe bets, because I don't really know what they're going to do. We could go dive deep into all the rumors that have been out there, but even some of the rumors don't sound crazy. So what is the crazy game they're going to announce that we don't know about that's going to blow our minds? I don't know. What is going to be that game? I mean, if they show Metroid Prime 4, that would obviously blow some people's minds, because I don't think people are realistically expecting that to be shown. Maybe not as shocking because it's been revealed before, but also, we don't think we're going to see it. If we see Bayonetta 3, is anyone going to be surprised that we see Bayonetta 3? I mean, probably not. That game's been in development by Platinum Games, a company that knows the IP, founded the IP, is very good at making that IP. They keep saying development's going well, and the only reason they haven't revealed or said anything is because Nintendo's not letting them. So, obviously, the game's going well, and whenever they're ready to show it is going to be probably closer to the time Nintendo wants to release it. So, it's a situation where there's going to be a surprise game. Whether it's for 2022, whether it's for this year, I don't know. And what's that surprise game going to be? Is it going to be a Mario Kart 9? Is it going to be, it's going to be something big. I just don't know what, and I don't know if it's this year or next year.
Mother 4.
Oh, no. No, don't do this to me, FiveJay. They said never making another Mother game again. Well, can we get Mother 3 at least? Reggie, Reggie, get out of here.
No. We're
Get out of here, Reggie. I don't need you
get Father
to
1.
shoot me with your laser eyes.
Yeah.
We're gonna get Father 1.
Reginator.
The Reginator. So yeah, I don't know. Those are kind of my, I guess, semi-realistic. Basically, you're going to see Breath of the Wild 2, some sort of Metroid game. I think a little bit of Splatoon 3, probably a Smash character reveal, maybe even a Ghost drop, Shadow drop that's going to be released later that day or something, because that has happened with Smash characters before. Potentially both of the last ones could get revealed, but I feel like they're going to try to milk that last one for as long as they can and reveal that later this year, September, October, something like that. And then, there's going to be a big game that, none of us saw coming. It's going to come completely out of left field, and hopefully it's a game that really, really excites us. I mean, it could be an ARMS 2, because people don't really expect that, but is that going to really drive the hype as, something else? Maybe it's the new Monolith Soft IP that we don't even know what this thing is. Maybe that blows our mind. We can't, wait, this is a Nintendo game? I thought, this looks like Avowed from Xbox. How the hell is this on a Nintendo platform? Oh, wait, this is exclusive? This is just something that just blows our mind. And that's what it could be, because after all, Shintaro Furukawa said Nintendo is focusing on new IPs moving forward. So that is something to look forward to, that maybe that big announcement will be a new IP. That being said, let's toss it over to Andre. What are your realistic expectations for Nintendo at E3?
Great question. I just want to pull something up real quick here, because I like kind of looking at Nintendo's tweets. All right, I got it. All right, cool. So they say, tune in for a Nintendo Direct with roughly 40 minutes of info focused exclusively on Nintendo Switch software, mostly releasing in 2021, followed by around 3 hours of gameplay. I just kind of kind of framing that in my mind. Firstly, when they say 40 minutes of info focused exclusively on Nintendo Switch software, I don't think that means that all the software in this Direct will be exclusive to Nintendo Switch, because I saw some people sort of speculating on that.
Yeah.
That's not what I think it means.
It didn't say exclusive Nintendo software. It said Switch software.
It just means that they're not going to talk about 3DS.
Yeah.
Or
or mobile games. Mobile games. That's the big
mobile
thing.
games.
And they're not going to
So
hardware.
if you thought they're going to announce a Zelda,
hardware, correct.
a Zelda mobile game, not going to happen. You want hardware specs, not going to happen.
But this is the interesting thing, right? By saying that, they're implying other things. the fact that they feel the need to specify exclusively on Nintendo Switch software, that does imply that there are other options, right? But what's also interesting about that is when you consider that historically speaking, they never talk about mobile games in their big directs during the summer. It's not even worth mentioning then. They've never done it before.
Well,
So they're probably go on.
that wording. I've been staring at that wording all day because
Right.
we have a massive Switch Pro conversation about to come up.
Exactly.
I think it's a clear hint to me that it's going to be announced, and we want to let people know that just because we announce it before E3 doesn't mean we're talking about it. They might show Switch Pro enhanced games because they can show games that are enhanced by Switch Pro. That's
Well,
fine.
Switch Pro is a Switch. So
It is a Switch,
technically it
but they're
doesn't
saying if we
But
announce
they're
it
going to talk
basically
about the software, not the hardware.
if we announce the
Right.
hardware and you want more
Before.
details, you're not going to get more details on it at this event. So they're kind of like setting you up for
Right.
hey, even if we drop this, we might show off
Yeah.
games for it. We're not going to show off specs. We're not going to tell you any extra features it has. That'll be at a later event before it comes out.
But
Or-
let
or
me
they
kind
announce it
of
beforehand, all of it.
yeah. But let me kind of just continue my train of thought here, right? So, like, when I read that, they're talking about software, but my secondary thoughts are, okay, they're implying there's other things beyond that, just not at this direct, and they feel the need to specify that because there are things surrounding this direct, like potentially the Switch Pro, right? But it's also but the other interesting thing here, well, there's several, mostly releasing in 2021. So, I know a lot of people, and this is the majority at this point, majority of people who are, I would consider intelligent people, are speculating Breath of the Wild 2 for 2022. So when they see mostly releasing 2021, I think a lot of people jump to, okay, Breath of the Wild 2, 2022. Like, for example, you, FiveJay, right now you're sort of thinking that maybe more likely 2022, which I think is a safe expectation. You are saving yourself from potential disappointment. Good.
Right.
But when you consider that we already know about two huge, major, likely 10 plus million selling Pokemon Nintendo games are slated for 2022, what is that really saying? So Splatoon 3 is slated for 2022, Legends Arceus is slated for 2022. Both these games have potential to sell 10 plus million copies. So if those are two major games coming out in 2022 already, and those both are likely going to be at E3, and then Breath of the Wild 2, probably Nintendo's biggest game development, say for Metroid Prime 4, is also coming out in 2022, and all three of those are showcased at E3. When you look at that wording then, does that terminology, mostly releasing in 2021, still kind of make sense? You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Like, is Splatoon 3, Legends Arceus, and Breath of the Wild 2 take up 50 to 60% of the direct? You know? Or even 40%? Is it fair for Nintendo to still call that mostly releasing in 2021?
Mm.
I'm not sure. Just something to kind of consider, right? Now, I'm not saying Breath of the Wild 2 is for sure coming out in 2021. That's a big debate. I actually have, I'm sorry, Nate, I'm going to shout a video out, but I have a video planned for tomorrow, kind of just like going over the entire up and down nature of this debate. But that kind of brings me to one of my expectations. Breath of the Wild 2, we're going to see it here, and we're going to know when it's actually coming out. Like, if they don't give us a release date, for sure the game's coming out next year at the earliest, right? Or they'll give us a release date and we'll know then. Like, we're going to get a good understanding of when the game's coming during this direct. I also think Legends Arceus will be mentioned. There may be a Pokemon Presents beforehand where we get more details on that, but it will at least be mentioned during the direct, and there will likely be treehouse footage of at least one of the two Pokemon games, potentially both. And I also expect to see Splatoon 3. Those are all safe things, right? The other safe thing is that there will be at least one Smash DLC character there. All of those are kind of like my baseline expectations, and I feel like most people would agree with that. What I also think is what I also expect. I expect to see a Metroid game. Like, when I say expect, like, it's think with great confidence. And actually, I'm actually kind of curious what you guys think of this. How would you define the word no?
Define the word no?
The KNOW.
Oh,
Like an absolute.
yeah.
So, how often in your life has someone told you they know something and they end up being wrong?
Pretty often, but I usually can tell that they don't really know when they say it.
Right. So that's why I always have a problem with saying no, because no really just means think with great confidence. So what I'm saying is that I think with great confidence Metroid will be at the E3 show. I don't know, right? Because you can never really know, but I think with great confidence Metroid will be at the E3 show And I'll also say that I think with great confidence that a Donkey Kong is very deep into development. However, I'm not going to make the mental leap to say that for sure Donkey Kong will be at E3. It could be. I think it's a good bet, but I'm not like nearly as convinced as I am for Metroid, Breath of the Wild 2, Splatoon, Pokemon, and Smash Brothers. But it's definitely like a very likely candidate, and I think it's one of those things that could. What?
No,
What
no, you can keep going. We were muted. There's an issue going on in my community Discord.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Go on.
Yeah, so those things Donkey Kong is not as likely as all the other things I just mentioned, but it's definitely like right below in terms of likelihood, in my opinion. So those are sort of my expectations. Smash, DLC character, Pokemon will be mentioned, Breath of the Wild 2, Splatoon 3, Metroid. Expected, and then going beyond that, Donkey Kong has a high likelihood, but I wouldn't say I fully expect it. A Fire Emblem remake, I think it has a high likelihood. I would also say a Kirby game has a high likelihood.
Yeah,
All of those are definitely strong candidates. Same with Bayonetta 3 as well. I expect to see Bayonetta 3 to be shown off to some extent at some point during 2021, and E3 is definitely a good place to show that off. If not, then the next options would be a September Direct or the Game Awards. So that's definitely one of those likely, but not like shoo-in, in my opinion. Going beyond that, we could see the Monolith Soft new IP or some sort of new Xenoblade game. I feel like there's a chance that Nintendo and the Smash team may have been teasing that with the whole Rex and Pyrus situation going on, and how they actually brought in Monolith Soft the first time ever to actually work on a Smash trailer besides the Smash team themselves. So there could be something going on with that, but it also could just be that they wanted to make it a special situation. But, definitely a strong chance because they've been working on a game since 2017. We're in 2021, so timing-wise, it makes sense. And on that note, the team that worked on ARMS, FiveJay, right? They finished ARMS back in 2017. They did some DLC, but now that we're in 2021, they've at least been working on this for about 3 years or so, right? So they could at least announce it. They don't have to. It doesn't have to come out this year, but they could at least announce what that is. It might be an ARMS sequel. It might be Mario Kart 9. It might be a new IP. It might be F-Zero. I don't know. But I pray that it's F-Zero, right? But
Oh no!
Not at all an expectation. It's not even like a likelihood. It's just a wish. It's just a pure-hearted wish. That is it.
Yes.
In terms of something else that I think is like likely is a sequel to Mario Rabbids Kingdom Battle. I think Ubisoft has been working on a sequel to that or something along those lines, and there's a good chance to see it at E3. One other thing I want to sort of speak on, though, in terms of like my expectations, is that I think we're also showing on Tensei 5. I don't want to miss out on that one. And also more updates.
No More Heroes.
No More Heroes 3. That'll pop in. Also Monster Hunter Rise. That will probably get some updates there. I think we speculated on here before, right?
Monster Hunter.
They could use Monster Hunter as like sort of like another crossover event, similar to how we're talking about the Fortnite thing for Metroid. Like imagine they put in Ridley, right? Or they put a Lino for Breath of the Wild. Like those are all like really cool monsters that they could just put in there. They would sort of market either Zelda or Metroid and would be super, super exciting to like actually do. So like maybe there could be some sort of crossover.
I've also heard that Capcom really wants to push Monster Hunter Stories 2 big time.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
yeah, cool. That's another thing to sort of look forward to there. Sonic Colors, I don't know if we talked about it here, but I've been thinking Sonic Colors Remastered would be a thing. That was confirmed last week, right? So I wouldn't be surprised if that's shown off at least in like a montage trailer. But going beyond that, I do think the Switch Pro is probably real, given that Bloomberg has reported that Eurogamer has corroborated that story, Emily Rogers has corroborated that story, Jeff Grubb, like the list kind of goes on. Like a lot of people all sort of believe this. A lot of like credible sources believe this is happening, and it's happening before E3. So I also believe it's happening before E3, and I think there's a chance we see it either announced tomorrow or Friday. And I think the reason why that would happen is because throughout E3 there will be games that will perhaps be shown off for the Switch and not necessarily at Nintendo's event. And they're just going to be like games that run better on Switch Pro, and that may be mentioned throughout the event. So even though Nintendo's event itself may not happen until the final day, Nintendo may still have somewhat of a presence because you're going to see these different trailers, and you're going to see that little Switch logo at a lot of different third-party trailers. I don't know if they're going to be exclusives, but perhaps they mentioned of like a Switch enhanced version or something like that. That's not like an expectation. That's more like, I would say, closer to like the Donkey Kong level of prediction, where I think there's a really good chance we see a lot of Switch announcements from third parties throughout E3 that's before Nintendo's Direct.
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously, I think we've held off probably long enough at this point. Switch Pro has been kind of the dominant story because we got the E3 announcement from Nintendo, but they didn't give us even a tease of what's going to be there. It's just software. What software? What game? It's all speculative at this point. We don't know. We could talk about the rumors and expectations, but at this point, if we're going to talk about rumors and expectations, why don't we talk about the thing that might imminently be upon us, at least fighting for pre-orders and whatever else here in the next potential 24, 48 hours, next week, potentially, whenever, because all this news happened literally since the end of our podcast. The very next morning, news broke, and it's been going nonstop since then. So let's just recap at the very beginning of what happened. Switch Pro's obviously been rumored to be coming for years, so people have been kind of dismissing a lot of the reports and rumors about it because, it's been just a lot of trickling smoke for a couple of years. Is it really even a real thing? Well, Takahashi Machizuki from Bloomberg just blew it all out of the water when he put up a report last week that said not only is the Switch Pro obviously real, and he's obviously been the one reporting on it primarily over the years, so he obviously thinks it's real anyways. He said it's going to likely be announced before E3 because third-party companies want to show off their Switch Pro versions of games. And not only that, it's releasing in September or October of this year. That just took because that's Takahashi Machizuki putting a he by the way, he didn't post this as a report, he didn't post this as a rumor, he said this matter of fact, he put his flag in the ground and said this is what's happening. And then he recapped prior things he's talked about with the 7-inch OLED screen, all that stuff that's been talked about in the past with Switch Pro. And then things went from there. You already mentioned, obviously, Andre, that they had all this other people come and confirm. Emily Rogers, Tom Phillips from Eurogamer, that's someone that you can hey, this is an actual journalist at another big outlet. He came out and said, hey, we have our own sources on this. They're saying exactly what Takahashi Machizuki said, to a T. We're hearing about it before E3. It's released in September or October, period, end of story. That's just what's happening. And then there's been other things that have happened. We have a report out of Vandals over in Spain, where they apparently were talking to some Chinese manufacturers who are working on accessories for the Switch Pro, because we all know when new systems come out, there's always day one accessories. And they brought out some extra details that they know about it as they're developing accessories for the system, because if they're partnered with Nintendo, they would have access to that. Or if they happen to work in the same factory, maybe they just have the kind of access that Chinese manufacturers seem to always have for products. So we learned things there too, potentially. Like the fact that instead of the normal kickstand the Switch has, we're going to get one that's like a Surface, which is really, really cool, because that's a way more reliable kickstand. And they would put the, the micro SD card underneath that, because of course they would. Like FiveJay showed it. Of course they would. And then other things, obviously, that the screen is bigger and it basically has no bezel, but the actual size of the Switch unit itself, the tablet, doesn't really change. They just get rid of the bezel, which, by the way, if you kind of measure diagonally, bezel corner to bezel corner, it's pretty much 7 inches. So, yeah, they wouldn't necessarily have to make it bigger to fit that 7-inch screen on there. They did mention that it was OLED as well. And then there were some other things, too. They mentioned that the dock is basically like the current dock, but a little bit thicker in the back. This dock will output 4K. Did specify if there's a microchip in it that upscales, or if the upscale is handled by the Switch itself. But they did say that it is a little bit thicker because they put an Ethernet port in there. And that is a big get that everyone's wanted to happen, because it made no sense that we've had to use a dongle for Ethernet, especially since we have USB 3.0 ports that don't run at 3.0 speeds, so you're not even getting the most you can out of an Ethernet dongle anyways. And that's another thing. They did say that, hey, it's going to have USB 3.0. Now, again, they could just be USB 3.0 ports that don't actually run at USB 3.0, because That's what Switch has. It doesn't run at those speeds, but they technically have the correct port for it to fool you into thinking it's 3.0. But if you actually do speed measurement
put it
tests,
in
it's
the
not even
box.
close. It's 2.0. The connection to the microchips they have on that little tiny board in there, it's all 2.0. 3.0 is not even possible on the board they put in there. So that's at least some of the more concrete stuff that's kind of been out there from actual journalists and news outlets. Then you get into all the crazy stuff. All the crazy stuff, well, when are we going to get this thing? Right? Andres mentioned tomorrow, potentially, maybe Friday. Tomorrow's probably more likely than Friday because there's not as much time to announce on Friday if they want it to also be announced in Japan at the same time. Because literally like a little bit into Friday for us, it's Saturday for Japan. So there's not that much time on a Friday to announce if they want to announce it for Japan. We've also heard things like this won't be a worldwide release. Europe potentially has to wait until 2022, and they might stagger the release, which...
Hey, can I point something out about that?
Sure.
So I've noticed that a lot of the speculation has sort of pinpointed to September, but the window was September and October. I personally think that it's a late October thing because that makes, in my mind, it makes more sense because if you're going to have most of the time then when Nintendo pushes hardware, they have a game to come out with it, to push it. So I think it makes more sense to put out a game that would be a suitable October game, similar to Luigi's Mansion 3 in 2019 or Mario Odyssey in 2017, both years where there was hardware releases, by the way. It makes more sense for there to be a holiday title coming out around then to support this system, not September, in my opinion. And when you consider that, if it's like a late October release, right? At that point, it kind of is not too far from November. So if we're looking at more like a 2 to 3 week window where things are sort of staggered, I feel like that's not that big of a deal. If it comes out like the beginning of September and then in other regions it comes out in November, then it's more like a 2-month window and then it's more of a bigger deal, right? So I don't know. But for me, I just feel like why jump to speculating that it's going to be early September when part of the window also includes October and late October just makes way more sense.
Well, I think
agreed.
I think a lot of that is just because people want this thing, as soon as possible.
Today.
But there's also a lot of thought process out there behind what this thing's going to cost. Because regardless of when it's going to be announced, right? Like I believe it was Nick from Xbox Era, one of the most popular Xbox podcasts, that put out there, hey, he was hearing Thursday. He knows this was actually supposed to be announced like last week, but it got pushed, and he said it could get pushed again. It sounds like from other insiders that Nintendo's had this reveal trailer done for this thing for a little while. I don't know what they're waiting for. Maybe that's because of Pokemon Presents, or maybe they're waiting to see what the rest of the industry was doing because all of a sudden the Sonic thing happened, and Nintendo doesn't control that. So maybe they wanted a day to themselves, and they were waiting for that day to come, and here it is. And obviously everyone is saying the only reason Nintendo's even unveiling it is because third parties have been asking Nintendo, who have the dev unit, been like, hey, we have this big event coming up. If you're planning to launch this thing this year, we really want to show our games in the best possible light on your platform, even if a majority of sales aren't going to happen on that platform this year, obviously. So there is that to consider. We also have to look at some of the other things that are happening. Today on 4chan, a Best Buy listing came out where it had it called New Nintendo Switch Pro, which I don't look into anything about the naming or anything like that. But then they also listed it at $399 to make it a $400 product here in the U.S. I think that is something that we have to consider, at least as a possibility for the price point, at least in the U.S. I don't know what it'll be elsewhere. And it also leads you to believe that obviously it's probably kind of beefy if they're going to increase the price by that much. Now, again, this is a Best Buy listing on 4chan. It is something that I look at it and I go, it does look real because I've seen the back-end system of Best Buy because I've worked there. And everything about what they showed looks real to me. And that is, like, some people are like, oh, why is it a cell phone pic? Because you can't take a print screen and get it off the computer. You'll get fired. You're not allowed to do that kind of crap. You're not even supposed to take cell phone pictures. So, and what I do know since working at Best Buy is the only way those listings get put in the system isn't by Best Buy, it's by distributors. Distributors inject into their system to get listings ready. So, I don't know what that means, but that is something as well. There's been other retailers, maybe Walmart Canada. Obviously, there's been a listing out in Amazon Mexico. Also, hey, FiveJay.
Yeah.
Want to turn your mic down a little bit? Your fridge is coming through nonstop. Figured I'd say something.
Is that better?
I still hear it.
Yeah, I still hear it. Sorry for the brief pause here. I know I'm sure there's people in the chat being like, "What's going on with that buzzing?"
Mm-hmm.
That's FiveJay's fridge.
I don't have a fridge in my room.
Oh,
How's
better, yeah. We have a mini fridge in ours, but it never makes noise. It's
Yeah, I don't
weird.
know.
It's
Does it
weird.
ever
Like, is
run?
it even working? I open it. It's cold.
But it's somehow cold.
It's
I don't know if
it's
it
a
ever
ghost
runs,
machine.
but it's somehow
Oh,
cold.
it wasn't audible at first. Now it just kind of randomly is.
Mm. Like still now?
Well, when you talk, I expect to hear it, but when
Oh,
you
Yeah,
don't,
yeah.
apparently.
Don't say anything now. Yeah, it's good.
it's good. Yeah, you're at a good level
Yeah,
now.
you're good.
Yeah, you gotta find that perfect balance.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what
Right.
that's what sucks about the Blue Yeti
Chat
too.
says
It doesn't
they haven't heard any
block
buzzing,
out
so
the background very
that's
well.
interesting.
What?
Chat said they haven't heard any buzzing, so
Well,
that's
that's
interesting.
good. Well,
Yeah.
It could just be audio on our end.
Yeah.
you know, you want to know why they're not hearing any buzzing? Because the sound that they're plugged into on the computer, I have a filter turned on it.
Oh, fair enough then.
Oh,
And
Oh,
so
okay.
that filter is probably cutting out his buzzing.
Cool.
But
okay.
so
Yeah.
good. Hey, I guess we didn't have to have that brief pause. All right, back to our
Yeah.
regularly scheduled program. So we have all the retailer listings starting to potentially pop up, getting ready to take pre-orders. It sounds like from all avenues, this thing is expecting to be $399. At least retailers are expecting this thing to be $100 more than the current Switch. Big thing Takahashi Matsuda said is it is going to eventually replace the base model Switch. Not now. He said slow phase out. If you think about it, they're not even launching this thing worldwide. So it's going to be a very slow phase out. You're going to be able to still get the OG Switch. They're still going to be making that thing for another couple of years. I wouldn't even worry about, oh, when are they going to stop? Yeah, in the waning years, they're going to stop making it and you're only going to have pro models. Like that's that and the light. Like that's just what it's going to be. And the thing is, you know, I don't want to get into that speculation. I was about to say, you know, is there even going to be a next gen or is it just going to be a continuous upgrading of devices? But we'll talk about that in a bit. First, I just want to get Eric,
Yes.
my man,
Okay.
Switch Pro. Couple things. One, are you excited? Two, are you going to buy it day one with me? Three, what is one game you're most excited to see enhanced by your new device?
Well, the first two, how are they even questions? Yes and yes. So let's just throw those out because absolutely, I'm getting it day one. And
Are you sure you can even get a pre-order in? That's the real question.
well, as long as I can, you know. What's saying you can get a pre-order?
Please.
Yeah, what do you got?
Please.
What do you got? New connections at Nintendo now?
No, connections at GameStop.
Oh, okay.
Because I'm guaranteed they're doing in-store pre-orders.
Yeah.
I don't even think that's like a...
Yeah.
Oh, no, they're going to do in-store
Well,
pre-orders.
yeah. So, one game that I'd like to see enhanced. No,
Anton, enhance.
yeah, right. Let's see. I mean, I just got done playing, or I'm in the middle of playing Mario & Rabbids Kingdom Battle. That'd be awesome, but I don't think that's ever gonna be upgraded.
I got an easy one.
Yeah,
The greatest game of all time.
Breath of the Wild.
Breath of the
I mean,
Wild in 60 FPS.
I was trying not to go there.
Why would you want to go there?
Well, because that's like a chip in. I mean that's just like
I left
I
it there
got a
for
good
the
one.
taking. I left it
I
there
got
for
a
the
good one
taking.
that I think would make a lot of sense to be enhanced. And according to Samus Hunter, it's happening, but we'll see. That's Xenoblade, and I'm referring specifically to Xenoblade Chronicles 2. I really feel like that game would benefit so much from an enhancement because if you remember Xenoblade Chronicles 2, especially when it came out, there's been some patches that have smoothed things up a little bit, but especially when you play in handheld mode, it's like a gritty mess. Love the game, but it is a gritty mess in handheld mode, and even when docked, the resolution leaves something to be desired. But the thing is, the game has such beautiful worlds. There's so many really cool graphical techniques that are actually happening in the game. Like, there's a lot of advanced stuff happening in the game. It's just the Switch and the way it's optimized does not run it really, really well. So on Switch Pro with a Switch enhancement, maybe 4K, perhaps the lighting's sort of fixed up a little bit and the frame rates improved, like the game would just look amazing. Like there's a beautiful game there, it's still beautiful, but it would just look far better if they were to simply just bump up the resolution. But with a couple other little things, this game could be one of the best looking games on Switch. So that's kind of like what I'm sort of pulling for to be improved upon. But Nate, while I have everyone's attention, because everyone in the chat's been sort of asking about this for a while, and I kind of do want to talk about it too. You know MVG, right?
Yep.
Modern Vintage Gamer tweeted something at 10:05 p.m. So like 30 minutes ago for me. He said, "You want to just read it out loud? Or you want to check it out yourself?"
You go ahead, go for it. You got the stage.
Sure. It's simple. Nintendo fans, tomorrow prepare for disappointment. So everyone in the chat is sort of taking this to mean, I'm going to assume the worst of the worst, and prepare yourself for disappointment. I get it, because you don't want to be disappointed, so you're disappointed by preparing yourself for disappointment. But what do you sort of make of what MVG is saying here?
All right, so to get into the MVG stuff just for a brief moment, I want to note MVG is like a co-host regular with Nate the Hate DirectV Games and his podcast. And literally he spent the entire last podcast trying to tell Nate and all the audience that Switch Pro doesn't even exist. So the bottom line is he doesn't even think this system is real. So of course he's going to say prepare for disappointment because he thinks the whole thing is all fake news. Meanwhile, Nate the Hate is sitting there making promises that it's going to happen, that he knows somebody making a game for it right now, and that it's going to get announced before E3. So I take it as MVG is either one, trolling and about to have a lot of fun and laugh, or two, he legitimately is just going to keep that train going of Switch Pro isn't real. You're going to keep being disappointed. He's going to laugh every single day that it's not unveiled. He's not someone that believes in the platform, so you shouldn't really care what he has to say. And you would know that if you actually listen to Nate Hate's podcast, which you absolutely should. Even if you don't like him as an industry insider, he does bring up some very good conversational points, and this was one of them. And this is where we found out that MVG literally just thinks it's just all hubbub. Before we get into a little bit more here, there's been a handful of super chats here I want to make sure we get to. One that happened way back earlier in the stream from Taker610. Thank you so much for the $2. I was waiting for this one because he says, was the light and Redbox revision shadow dropped? Normally, when people think of shadow dropped, it means like, oh, it's like announced and releases today. I don't think that's what you meant, though, because that clearly was not the case with either of those devices. I think what you meant was, did Nintendo announce a date that they were going to talk about it? No. They just literally dropped it. Here you go. Here's Switch Lite. Come go get it, in however many days. So that's what they did. They also did that with the Redbox revision. All revision consoles, they don't do it. If you think about it, in Nintendo's history, they don't tell you when they're going to announce systems. They just do it.
Right.
It's very rare that they let you know ahead of time. Switch was a rare thing where they said, oh, NX, we are acknowledging NX at E3. Breath of the Wild is going to be a launch game on NX, but we're not even going to tell you what the hell that thing is. See you later this year.
But they were in a bad way at that point.
Yeah. So that was one super chat. Let me scroll on down here because I know there is. I'm way behind in the chat, so I'm sorry I'm not reading the current chat. So let me jump down. I know there was a few other super chats that popped up since then. Here we go. So Justin Beal was just wanting to let people know, or Justin Basil, sorry. Thank you for the $3. He said, hey, everyone, hit that like button. Yeah, we got almost 500 people watching. We should have a crisp 350 likes, I think, right? Let's see here. Merrick Akini did 2 something. I'm not sure what currency that is. And they said there won't be a REL title. EU is getting the Pro later. That is exactly what is being reported out there, that Europe will be getting it in like 2022, which would make a lot of sense. I think in general, because look at the situation with stock right now with everything. If Nintendo doesn't view this as a quintessential item that you have to own, but they also know it's going to be sold out, then they might as well worry about trying to getting control of the stock situation before they launch it worldwide, because it's just going to be a shit show launching it worldwide otherwise. And I'm just kind of to see if there was any other
that would be a Swiss
super
franc.
chats I missed. And I don't think so. So I think we're...
Is what you're looking for.
Oh, and Merrick Akini also had a $2 or 2 whatever currency that is, and he did mention that Breath of the Wild 2 won't be at E3, so that's his expectation. All right. So Yeah, so we went through like all the stories up to now. I want to throw this at FiveJay. Like, we haven't talked in a long time. Haven't talked about Switch Pro in, God, ages. A year?
Yeah, for real.
So, I mean, he hasn't. Obviously, you guys know I have. I want to get your thoughts right now. Like, what do you think about all this craziness? Is it even something you're interested in? Do you honestly think it's going to get announced before E3? What a weird time to announce a system, right? A system that they apparently don't even plan to talk about at E3. What are your thoughts on all this stuff?
Well, I definitely see having a lot more of that consistency of the rumors feels much better to me than the last time we talked, which I don't even remember how long ago that was. But these rumors have been going on for so long. I think a lot of it was just optimism. But this feels like it's not optimism anymore. This feels like real insider stuff now. Before there was like this talk of like, oh, it's super premium. It's like aluminum shell. And I'm like, I don't know, man. But if we're just talking about same form factor, better features, that sounds super Nintendo to me. Just dropping system or announcements for systems out of nowhere, it's very Nintendo to me. I think it's completely possible. It's 2021. 4 years have gone by. It's so weird to me that they actually have made so few revisions in this amount of time. We have a Lite, and we have a version with a better battery. But it's not even, it's really the same thing. So
Yeah, it wasn't even marketed as a new revision.
right, they just put it out. It was never once marketed like, oh, come get the better battery version. It was just like, oh, we can see now here this has better battery life. Must be new. So we're totally overdue. Totally overdue. We're used to having their portable systems get like a new revision every year. So yeah, I think it finally feels like it's going to happen. Before E3, they do seem to be being very coy and suspiciously quiet. There's been plenty of occasions in the past where Nintendo has outright said, we're not talking about hardware, so don't expect it. And they're not doing that right now. They're saying, yeah, we're going to talk about Switch software only. Okay, well.
Also, a lot of Metopia posts.
Yeah.
Tons of Metopia posts. Cute ponies and chibi characters everywhere. Every time you check the thread, Nintendo Switch Pro? No, this is another Metopia pony. Enjoy.
Right.
Hey.
Yeah, they got nothing to talk about
Why
until
not?
they finally tell us about it. So I think it does feel real. Finally, for me, it does really feel real, and I am very excited for it. I don't know if it's going to live up to everyone's expectations, but it simply doesn't matter to me because I know it's going to have some sweet improvements that are going to make my games more enjoyable, and that's all I need in a new Switch. It doesn't have to be an OLED screen. If it is, awesome. Not going to complain about that. If it's a larger screen, I think that's a no-brainer. They have a history of making, their systems a little larger with better, like the SP, better lighting and whatnot. So I think even if it's as simple as, hey, better screen and you can upscale to 4K from your dock, cool. That's good stuff. Even if it was 1440p and not 4K, that's fine. Sounds great. So the only thing that could really bring it down would be the price. If they were to announce like, hey, it's $499. I don't know about that. So,
Yeah,
what's your limit?
But I think that they're cognizant of that. I think $399 makes sense because they're gonna have the $199 Lite, they're gonna have the $299 regular, and the $399 Pro, and then after a year or two, they're going to get rid of the regular and, $100 price cut for the Pro. Isn't that convenient? That's what it feels like to me, that they're just going to try to keep it close to that $299 mark as far as the entire family of Switch systems go. So I'm on board, man. I'm on board.
That's good, man. And speaking, you mentioned 1440p. Shout out to Just Your Average Gamer. He did a $5 super chat during your conversation there and mentioned that 1440p would be great for the switchy feels. I also 1440p to me is like I'm a PC guy as well. Like 1440p is like the sweet spot. Even when you have a 4K monitor, you'd rather have like 1440p, 240 hertz. Like you'd rather have the high refresh rate, but just a little bit better than 1080p. So 1440p is nice. The thing is, most TVs, that's not the way it goes. You get 1080, 4K.
Right. If it gets a 1440 signal,
So
soft upscale to 4K.
So like it's gonna. I mean, I would like 1440. Like I don't know. There's probably some indie games that could maybe run it like native 1440, and then it gets upscaled to 4K because the rumors on the Switch Pro in the past that said DLSS and all the stuff that would handle all those upscaling. So yeah, it's definitely something to kind of put out there just as an idea, anyways. Maybe a tease because I believe it's PlayStation 5 that doesn't support 1440p, surprisingly, while Xbox does. I believe maybe it's the other way around. But I keep thinking that it was Sony's platform that for some reason, if you plug it into a 1440p monitor, it won't run at 1440p. It'll run at 1080. So it's kind of that. It's a sweet spot. Like PC gamers have been loving that 1440p forever. It's kind of weird that we don't get that on everything.
It's a resolution that makes sense. 1080 was actually the weird one out because it wasn't a multiple of the resolutions we'd seen in the past. It was just its own thing. So 1440 makes a lot of sense.
You're correct. Sony does not
now
have the
that
1440.
1080 has been a standard for so long, okay, 4K makes sense as well as a 4 times multiple of 1080. So
Eric's in here with the correction here. Which one? What is it, Eric?
No, you're right. Sony doesn't have the 1440.
Okay, so it's Sony.
You were correct.
Okay, cool. We got that. All right. So so Sony is the one that doesn't have the 1440. So all right. So here's the thing. I obviously think Switch Pro is happening at this point. I think there's been too much smoke, too much fire, too many outlets are going to get absolutely destroyed if this isn't true. And I will say, as upset as I would be if this wasn't real and it was all a big ruse, I also would say that, well, the only way that happens is if Nintendo let it happen. So if Nintendo let it happen, it's like the ultimate troll of all time. And I'm just going to laugh because Nintendo would have literally just destroyed the entire video game industry and all video game media and made them all look like frauds. So it's one of those situations where it's just, there's too many, even Jason Schreier's talked about it a little bit. Obviously, we mentioned Jeff Grubb before. Like, too many big names are kind of like, yeah, we already know about this thing. It's like one of the worst kept secrets in the industry. And you'll have some people come up being like, oh, I talked to some developers. They say they haven't heard of this thing. They don't have. You know how strict the NDA is on this thing? We don't even know the specs. Are you kidding me? Like, you know how strict the NDA is on this? So we'll see what happens. Obviously, I keep checking. The Nintendo has like regular times that they put out tweets at. And when they do big announcements, it's usually at like 8 or 9 or 10. And then sometimes they'll wait a little bit, and then they'll have their 1 p.m., their 2 p.m., and their 4 p.m. tweets and stuff like that. So like they kind of have like a regular thing for it. And I'll throw this out there. This is just complete speculation. So Samus Hunter was talking to me today because she was getting in a little spat with some other leakers out there who are getting off. Everyone's fighting over everyone being wrong about E3.
Everyone in Reset era thinks Samus Hunter is a hoax.
Yeah. So like, there's a big battle going on. So she messaged me, and I'm like, I don't want to get in the middle of this stuff. Like, bottom line is, you're either a hoax or you're not a hoax. I don't know.
No.
I'm just the messenger. It is what it is. We'll find out come E3, right? Let E3 happen. We'll see what happens. So here's my thing. She said, and if you still believe in her, that's fine, because she has a number of things that she's gotten right. So we can't just dismiss, even if she's wrong about some E3 stuff. She said that she is aware of certain tweets happening on specific days in Europe. They're going to happen in the Nintendo Europe account. And she told me what those tweets are. I'm not going to tell you guys because I'm going to kind of wait and see if they happen myself before I start to be like, okay, well, maybe she was right on all those, then that's a good thing. But she mentioned specifically that there was no currently planned tweets on their account for tomorrow. And when she asked her source said, there's nothing going on that I'm aware of. And she told me, isn't that strange that there's no plans for tweets on a Thursday when they have regular tweets all the time? You were just joking about the Miitopia tweets, Skyward Sword HD tweets. Like they've been just throwing out stuff that we already basically know about, and they're just keep doing it. And all of a sudden tomorrow there isn't any planned ones. And she noted that when you look back to the past, and this is just something you can factually look up, when they like announced Switch Lite and they dropped their Twitter, their like tweet about it, that was like the only thing for the whole day, and there was like no warning for it apparently with the marketing department. They just dropped it. It wasn't, because that's how they keep it under wraps, is that people don't know this. It's not scheduled out ahead of time, right? It's somebody, some bigwig who's in control of it, comes on, uploads, hits send, done deal. So that's what Samus Hunter is claiming, that she is not saying it's going to happen tomorrow, but she's kind of speculating because there isn't another scheduled tweet, at least at the time she talked to me, that wouldn't that makes sense then to drop it tomorrow. But we'll see. Again, she wouldn't even be the source on tomorrow anyways. That's her speculation. It would be that Nick guy from Xbox Arrow, who, by the way, has not come out and said it got moved. Notable. I've been watching him, following him. He has not said anything publicly anywhere that Nintendo has kicked it further down the road. So if he's an actual insider, we'll find out tomorrow because he said tomorrow.
Yeah. I'll say though, I actually see Super Metal Dave in the chat, like also suggesting that maybe possibly like next week, right? Like that's possible. It's also interesting when you consider that Nintendo has a tendency to make us wait as long as they possibly can. Like, think about it. We only just got the confirmation of their E3 Direct today. Everyone else kind of announced their stuff a while ago already, right? And their Direct is the very last day of E3. So, I don't know. There's definitely like a pattern with Nintendo making us wait as long as possible before it actually happens.
And I also look at it like this, though. Summer Game Fest is next Thursday. There's a bunch of companies there that make games for Switch, even though Nintendo's not there. Could obviously be some Switch games talked about there. I would assume if they want to show Switch Pro stuff, it would need to be unveiled before Thursday of next week. So, again, that gives you a whole nother week from today that they could unveil things from this Wednesday to next Wednesday. And I get that. And I get that we all want this thing announced now. Like, there's a lot of, we want this Nick guy to be right. Why are we covering this Nick guy? Because we want him to be right. We want this thing announced tomorrow. And the thing is, there's retailers that are listing it as going up for pre-order at midnight on the 4th, which lines up with what Nick said about it being announced tomorrow. So you put 2 and 2 together, and you're like, yeah, it's being announced tomorrow. Everyone get ready to F5 at midnight to get your pre-order in, or get ready to essentially get announced tomorrow. You know what I'm gonna probably end up doing?
Let me offer a counter argument though.
Sure.
Like, what if those retailers are just putting up those listings,
anticipating it?
Anticipating exactly.
Yeah. That's why I said the only one to me that was like, ooh, wait a second, was when the Best Buy one. If that's legit, I know for a fact that's from a distributor. That's not from Best Buy themselves. Distributors don't throw things in there willy-nilly, and that was listed as the 4th. So I'm just gonna.
People in chat have been saying that it's for that SKU is for an AMD processor.
Maybe it is. I have no idea. Here's what I know. I know that. Actually, maybe I should use the word no.
Yeah, right.
Don't use the word no. How did you phrase it, Andres?
With what part?
The word no.
K-N-O-W. Yes. Think with great confidence.
Yeah, I think with great. I'm gonna be stealing that now every video until people get sick of hearing it. I think with great confidence that the Switch Pro is being announced sometime in the next 48 hours. Don't know when. Don't have any personal sources on this. Obviously, Sam and Sons are speculating. That's speculation. Again, it would be speculation anyways on our end anyways, right? Rumors, whatever you want to call it. So I think it's going to end up being announced this week because I think there's a nervousness that happens from third partners entering the week that they're supposed to be getting their announcements out, that Nintendo still hasn't done it, and last minute changes if Nintendo just decides not to do it. So I think it needs to happen this week. And as we noted way back earlier in this podcast, there was a very interesting, why is Nintendo specifying we're talking about software exclusively for the Switch? And it's kind of like, okay, but of course you are. Like, that's what you do. The 3DS is discontinued. You hardly ever bring up mobile games at E3. So, like, okay, this is what you do. You talk about Switch games at E3. Like, we don't expect next-gen games or whatever. So, like, what? You don't have to specify that unless you know an additional expectation is going to be made because of something you're about to announce. And you want to, like, let people know, no, you're not going to get the details you want to know about that system here.
It's one of those self-aware tweets, right? Because Nintendo and their marketing team or their social media team are totally aware of all the Switch Pro hype. It's everywhere in all their threads. So,
every single tweet they make.
Yeah.
Where's the Switch Pro? Oh,
yeah.
Another non-Switch Pro tweet.
It could be the case that, like, they don't just. I'm gonna assume, and I don't know for a fact, but I'm gonna assume that whoever they have behind their social media people, right, like who do their tweets, like they're planned tweets. They're not like they have some dude who just like decides, okay, this is what we're gonna do right there and there. Like there's people who look it over, like, okay, this is what you can say and this is how you're gonna phrase it, right? Like there's a bit of a team, there's a bit of a thought process there. Like they didn't just put that wording there unintentionally. I feel like it is suggestive for sure that there's something else maybe. Not necessarily Switch Pro, right? But that's what I think it is, given all the reports.
Yeah, absolutely. And my thing is, I've been wanting this platform for years, right? There's been like little rumors and mutterings about this thing back in 2017. There was even one muttering in it in 2016 when it started coming out that this might be the Tegra X1 and all that, and being like, oh, it's a 2015 tech coming out in 2017. It's not going to age well. And this wasn't the chip Nintendo wanted to use, but whatever they want to use wasn't affordable, and whatever excuses were being thrown out there. I remember this being a big thing back then. And I remember the first time we mentioned the words, Switch 2 or Switch HD or Switch 4K or Switch Pro, Switch Advanced, like was way back in 2017. I remember using that language. And people are like, why the hell are we talking about this thing in 20? Well, one, Nintendo's always, as Shintaro Furukawa said himself, they're always working on the next thing. They're always making something. And he especially noted, we're at the midway point. We're definitely working on hardware. Period. End of the story. Like, not even a question. This is what we did a whole coverage of it. That I said next-gen hardware. It doesn't necessarily mean it's next-gen hardware. They're just working on hardware, whatever it is. What could it be? Well, there's a lot of interesting things to pay attention to right now. NVIDIA's doing a ton of announcements here. They already did some. Apparently, they got some more coming up next week. And in those announcements are potentially new Tegra SoCs that they might be using in future Shield TVs or in future smart cars or future this or future that also might end up being a chip potentially being thought of for the Switch, because they were factually hiring people just last year to work on a Tegra SoC for a game console. And right now, the only game console they have anything in is the Switch. So take that for what you will. Obviously, then we have the reports that they want to discontinue the Tegra line and all this jazz. A lot of stuff has been pointing to this for a while. The Tegra X1 line, by the way, not the overall Tegra brand. So, I mean, what does it mean? Okay, first off, let's talk about the number one thing I think people are worried about if this thing's dropped tomorrow. How the hell are people going to pre-order it? We're technically still in a pandemic in most of the world. How the hell are people going to pre-order this device? Like, they can't even, like right now. I'm going to go to Amazon right now. I guarantee you there are a lot of models of Switch sold out right now. So, like, how the hell are we going to end up being able to get a pre-order for Switch Pro? Like, to me, the obvious reason is if they do in-person ones, which I suspect Nintendo would do because they've been selling Switches in person this entire pandemic, that, that's your best method, right? It gets announced. Maybe the moment it gets announced, you better head off over to your local GameStop and park your butt outside till the next day. That's probably what I was going to, like when Eric gets off work, I wouldn't be surprised if I said, Mom, come over, watch the kids till Yulia's done with work. We got to go park our butts to make sure we get pre-orders in for this thing. Because that's going to be our best bet. Now, it doesn't mean we won't be at midnight spamming our phone trying to get the pre-order online so we don't have to sit there all night. But it's also one of those that we'll also be live streaming it, and you guys will probably keep us company. But I'm looking on Amazon right now. They do have the Redbox Switch in stock right now, and they do the Animal Crossing one, so that's good. So maybe...
Wait, no, if you look, it says in stock June 26th.
Oh, yeah.
Soon,
yeah, it does, yeah.
In stock July 1st.
I see that, yeah. So they're not in stock. Yeah, they're not in stock, but they're selling you future stock orders.
Yes.
I mean, I'm looking at even like the... that one's available pretty much right now. The Switch... No, get it as soon... Now, see, 2-day shipping.
Switch Lite Blue.
Switch Lite Blue is
available.
It's not technically in stock. It is... Because get it as soon with Prime shipping is June 8th. Prime shipping is 2 days. Oh. That's like a week from now. Yeah. So like that's not technically in stock. They're just a stock drop happening at the end of this week, soon, basically. Yeah. Soon. Like the Corral one. That's a bit closer. But like you're seeing here though, like it's sold out. Turquoise completely sold out. That's being scalped right now on Amazon. So like Switch is not readily available. Is it impossible to get? No, you can go, if you're willing to wait a few weeks, you can go buy an order ahead of time and get it shipped to your house just fine. Other retailers might have it. You might be able to go to your local stores. Like around here, we had like when the Miitopia switches came out, there was only like 2 left at the store, all gone now. And then when they came in restock of Switches out at Target, like last week or whatever, we got the last one in the store. They said they got 250 of them in, and we got the last one on the very day they came in.
Dang.
Yeah, in our area, not even that highly densely popular area. Now, I don't know if that's because they're scalping them, or I don't know how, because you can still order them at MSRP without scalping. So I don't think it's because of scalping. I just think it's a high demand. We're still in a pandemic. People are at home. Now there's been more and more pushing because, hey, look, a lot of people turned up. They could do their job from home. They don't want to stop working at home. So now there's that whole movement about, hey, can we just have our life back and just work from home and make our own schedules and do our own thing, because we're actually enjoying life a little bit better, not having to do that 9 to 5 in an office all the time. Being able to be at home and turn your Netflix on and still get your work done, because you can't do that in the office. You might get in trouble. One person might walk in and see you're watching your show, even though your work is all done. That's just the way it goes. In some professions, obviously not every single profession can be from home. You can't be a surgeon at your house. That's
Can't
probably
assemble switches from your house.
I mean, you can't assemble the parts needed to make the Switch. Anyways, so yeah, there's obviously some jobs. I would assume if you're at your house, you're not going to be able to be Paul Bunyan and create your own, wood to build a new house. I presume you got to go to the woods somewhere. Maybe you own a back 40 with a whole bunch of woods. Who knows?
You might.
But yeah, the point is that the Switches aren't necessarily always ready to get the day you want to get it. But Switch Pro is going to be so hard to pre-order. And retailers, this happens every time, are going to take more pre-orders than they end up getting, and they're going to cancel. Amazon always has that happen. Best Buy always has that happen. So the only guaranteed way that your pre-order, even if you feel like, oh, I got it in right away in the first millisecond that it became available. Yeah, you and how many millions of others, and how many of those are getting canceled.
Mm-hmm.
To me, this is why I always say in-person pre-orders, if this thing is announced tomorrow, it goes up for pre-order on Friday. If you can go in person, and obviously you're fully vaccinated and you're safe out there, go for it. Do it. If you've been waiting to camp out and you work at home and you can take the time, do it, because the in-person ones are the ones that you're guaranteed, because what happens is, at least at our local GameStop, is they will only sell what the computer says the units they are getting. Period. And they usually will sell even under that just to be safe. And then they'll reopen it again, a few days later once it's double confirmed. That's one thing that happened with me is when I went in for my Xbox Series X pre-order, I actually didn't get one in. I was one off from getting an Xbox Series X. I got an Xbox Series S pre-order. They called me a week and a half later and said, oh, hey, turns out we're actually getting 2 more Xbox Series X's. We remembered that you were next in line. Do you want it? Yes. Yes, I do. And the funny thing is, I also got lucky and got a second pre-order on Target at the time. I was doing both. I was trying to go into GameStop and fighting online. Yeah. And you could do that. You can factually do that when you're waiting in line. If you happen to get one online, good, go home. I mean, maybe don't. Maybe you just get both just in case it gets canceled. But especially if I'm
always worried about getting stuff online just because I like getting things as soon as possible. And multiple times I've seen friends order things and not get them immediately. And I'm like, I'm playing this now. Why? Because I either bought it at midnight or the day.
Well, so here's the thing. I had the pre-order of the Series X on Target, and then I had my one at GameStop. Paid both off, and I ended up selling the second one because I didn't need it to someone on Twitter or whatever. And day one, I had my Xbox Series X. The Target one didn't show up for 2 or 3 days. Which, I mean, when you're getting a launch system, 2 or 3 days isn't that big of a deal per se when it's just so hard to get. But it's also, but I got mine day one because I got to go in person and they just handed it to me. Same thing when we got the Switch pre-order. Going day one, they just handed me that and all the stuff I pre-ordered and they actually had already pre-packed in a bag for you, all nice to go. Yeah. Mm-hmm. You just sit there in the store, you can hold it, they won't let you open it. It was funny. Yeah, we could hold it, we could look at the box, we could peek in it, but you can't open it, and you can't walk out of the store until midnight, because we actually all had the Switches at 15 minutes before midnight. It was really cool. again, Switch Pro is going to be very hard to pre-order, and I think that's what people are most worried about with this system getting announced when it's getting announced right now, is how the hell are we going to get our pre-orders in? And really, it's the same as any other way that you would get pre-orders in, and it's kind of a crapshoot. And unless you camp out and you're first in line, you might only get one unit.
Yeah.
So good luck. We had a super chat come in here from J.B. Bonifacio for $5. It says, "You're insane if Nintendo's announcement means there will be a Switch Pro announcement. They literally said the Direct is focusing on software." Thank you so much for that. So what we were saying there is that the announcement happening before E3, we're not saying at E3. That them saying the software, Nintendo never really goes out of their way to say we're only talking about software for Switch. They don't have to say that. It's the only platform you have at the moment. Of course, that's what you're doing. The fact that they said that means that there's a reason they had to tell people to not expect anything else. Either because they're aware, it could just be as much as they're aware of the rumors of the Pro and they're not going to talk about it, and they're not going to talk about it at E3, they're not going to talk about it before E3, and it could just be as simple as that. That's just being consciously aware that people think this thing is happening, and maybe it's not, and Nintendo wants people to stop expecting it. It's also possible that means they're going to announce it before E3, but they don't want to focus on it at E3. They don't want questions about it. They don't want people being like, what's the exact SoC? How much RAM? How much this? How much? No. Whatever they announce before E3 is what you're going to get. And then you'll probably see some games during E3 that are running on it. And that's all you're going to get until a later time when they want to start ramping up advertising for it more towards the release date. Start letting people know what all you're getting with this thing. When they announce it, there'll be a couple marketing things. I'm sure they might mention bigger screen. That's why some people thought, oh, maybe it's called Switch XL, bigger screen. Sure. But I don't know. It's one of those things that it's not that it confirms anything. It's just kind of interesting that they said it the way they did, as if we should be expecting something else, when we shouldn't be expecting anything else at E3 except software. Just my take. Smithy Davis also said, "I read that the Pro might be announced tomorrow." What do you think? Eric, what do you think? Is it getting announced tomorrow?
Sure, why not?
Sure, why not?
Why not?
So Eric's all in. Eric's all in on that. FiveJay, what do you think? Is it getting announced tomorrow?
Boy, trying to predict Nintendo's unpredictableness. I'm gonna be. I want to say no, but something is stopping me, so I guess I'm a yes. It's announced tomorrow. There it is.
Oh boy, Andres, what are we thinking tomorrow?
So I'll try not to speak in absolutes, right? Try not to think in absolutes. So nothing in my head is ever 100%. But I'll tell you this: my plan for now, all throughout the weekend, is acting as if there is something happening tomorrow. Now, I'm prepared for that to not happen, and it'll be fine for what I plan to do. But I'm keeping my eyes peeled, and I'm prepared for something to be announced tomorrow. If it doesn't happen tomorrow, that's fine. They can theoretically do it Friday, or they can theoretically do it early next week. It doesn't mean it's not happening yet. So, But
so is this one of those I'm prepared as if I've already got my I'm sick, I can't come to work today speech prepared?
Well, I have tomorrow off.
So you hope pre-orders go up tomorrow. That's what you're hoping.
I am prepared to go and get pre-orders either tomorrow or Friday. Those are my 2 days off this week, so I'm prepared. You notice how it always seems like my days off are always timed when the events are happening, but I don't know if it's happening tomorrow, so we'll see. But I'm prepared for it, so we'll see what happens. I do want to say though, on that note, we're supposed to get Pokemon news. So, is it possible that this year will be the first time when we get an E3 Direct that there isn't a Pokemon presentation beforehand? That's how it's been for the last while. We got the release dates last week, which is strange. Normally, we would get just the announcement of the games. We get the release dates in a Pokemon Direct or Presents. So I'm not sure what's going on here, but I still feel like there's a pretty good chance we get a Pokemon Presents before E3. potentially that's announced next week because the week after is the E3 Direct, right? So, I'm just saying, like, if there's a Pokemon Presents next week, maybe they save an actual content showcase this week, right? Because yes, we got the confirmation that there's an E3 Direct, but that's just a tweet. Like, there's not actually any demonstration of new content there, right? If we get a showcase trailer tomorrow for this Switch revision, that's actual new like content Nintendo is showing us, you know? So I feel like it would be strange if for Nintendo to save that for next week and then follow that up with a Pokemon Presents. They could. There's 5 days in a week. They could do that, but it might make more sense for them to spread out their actual like content reveals, right? So maybe this week we get that Switch revision actually shown off, and obviously we already got the confirmation of the Direct. Then next week maybe we get a Pokemon Presents, and then obviously the week after we get the big 4-hour sort of big block of Nintendo news.
Yeah. And I see some people in the chat that keep saying, "Oh, check Central Leaks." I already know, well aware of what Central Leaks says out there, guys. It's about Amazon and that how it can be independently verified by anyone with high enough access to Amazon, which doesn't really mean much because you. I'll say this: to get it independently verified, we have to know who's higher up at Amazon that's willing to verify it, and we don't typically know people who would. So just saying that doesn't mean that it's verified. On top of that, it mentions that the internal time is a real listing. Any Amazon employee can access it, but we don't know when the revision will be announced. That's the entire point. Central Leaks is basically saying, "Hey, look, they think this thing is real, but it doesn't necessarily mean it is." So, AKA, everything that Central Leaks has said means next to nothing. Sorry, I know we talked about it in a video earlier today, but it kind of sounds like they don't know anything. They're just making it up as they go, like the rest of us. Now, I do want to kind of throw this out to...
I do believe Central Leaks, by the way. I feel like they're good with their information.
They've gotten a lot wrong over the years.
Yeah.
A lot wrong. Now, they get some stuff right, too. That's the thing. Like, all insiders are right and wrong all the time. So I'm not trying to, like, knock them down. I'm just saying that, like, it's funny how...
As of late, they were good about all the Gen 4 stuff.
Yeah, they were good about Gen 4, yeah. So, like, I'm just throwing out there that it feels like they're backtracking. They provided receipts, and now they're saying, "Oh, but by the way, we don't actually know anything. And if you want this verified, go find someone at Amazon that can verify it." And it's like, we don't... How the common people don't have access to a high-up Amazon employee to verify it. And high-up Amazon employees probably wouldn't verify it anyways because they're not supposed to talk about it. That's my thing. I hate when... It's just the way that Central Leaks are presenting this as if a lot of people calling them out and them saying, "Well, you get a hold of an Amazon employee and verify it." And it's like, but we can't. That's the point. We want to know how you got a hold of one to verify it.
Right.
But that's just, again, and then they say, "We don't know when it's going to be announced." Well, if you're verifying this and you're saying this is real, and that's Friday, that means it's announced tomorrow. So you would know. But you don't. And Amazon listings, by the way, can also be kind of put up by strange people.
I'll tell you
sometimes.
that I feel like I semi-sympathize, though. And I haven't seen the whole situation, but I just, like, in general, I sympathize with people who are known to provide it before it's officially announced. Because when there's a lot of hype, people have these really high expectations. They perhaps really look very deeply into what they say sometimes. Like, notice, like, I'm not going to... Like I'm mostly speculating and predict, right? I'll also occasionally I hear a few things, but for the most part, everything I talk about is based off analyzing history and what makes sort of sense and predicting it, right? So like I always, and even when I hear something, I always try to specify that like I don't know for sure what's happening, right? This is just what I think what's happening, what may be happening, and I don't want people to take anything I say as gospel because that is never the case, and I also would like to sort of point out that I feel like it should be that way for everyone. Every single industry insider or leaker or rumor giver or predictor, no one is 100% right ever because that's just not how it works. Information, especially when it's before it's officially announced, it's a fluid process. It's a fluid process. And there are people who are on the inside of the inside and they're not entirely sure what's going to happen because plans change all the time. So even if, let's say Central Leaks has legitimate information 100%, perhaps when they share this information, they may not want to go all in because they know there's a chance, given all the potential variables, it may not happen exactly when they are suggesting it will. And with everyone so hyped about it, they're going to get a lot of flack. They may lose credibility. They're going to upset people. So I'm just saying I understand the hesitance and I sympathize. Mhm. Apparently, you're muted.
Oh, sorry about that. Thank you guys. Thank you guys for letting me know that. So what I was trying to say is, one, thank you for that speech. I really appreciate that because I've already been getting backlash myself. I'm sure you will eventually as well. Everyone who's been reporting on this stuff will, because when it turns out to maybe it's not true, maybe all of it's fake. And if that's the case, which by the way we've already kind of covered that, there's some really big names that are going to be in some pretty big trouble if this stuff isn't real. Like, not us. We're independent YouTubers. No one's going to slap us. You guys can choose to stop watching and we'll move on with our lives. It's not that big a deal. But it's still one of those situations where I think we're coming to a head. And we can really just point all the way back. Why are we this way? Because Takahashi Machizuki broke a story last week telling us to be. He set the expectation. Tom Phillips followed it up. And then Emily Rogers, who's been one of the most reliable Nintendo leakers in the history of Nintendo leakers, told us about Mario plus Rabbids Kingdom Battle in 2016, and nobody believed her. They said, you're full of it. No, she wasn't. She knew exactly what was going on. Is she 100%? No, as Andres said, nobody's 100%. Even now it's coming out. Samus Hunter, who's had a flawless track record. Well, there might be some chinks in the armor coming up. And now that the chinks in the armor are coming up, that's why she's starting to get some flack, because that's what happens when the chinks happen. Every leaker knows that. Zippo, by the way, he's banned from Reset Era now, because now they think he's a fake one. Even though he's been leaking stuff for 4 years and got a bunch of stuff correct. Doesn't matter. He got recent stuff wrong, so now people are backlashing against him. I'm actually kind of surprised that Nate the Hate hasn't gotten similar backlash, because he's been wrong on a lot of stuff as well. Bottom line is, all the leakers are not the direct sources of the information. They're all getting their information from game developers, from people in marketing. They're getting their information. Sometimes maybe they have, maybe they do have an uncle who works at Nintendo. But wherever they're getting their information from, the information doesn't come from themselves working at the company, leaking it out. They're always getting it from somebody else. And when that happens, you never really know. Sometimes it's going to be right. Sometimes it's going to be wrong. Sometimes it is right. Like, as an example, we don't factually know if Star Fox Racing was a real game or not. It could have been. Supposedly that's what, a game that was being worked on at Retro. But we'll probably never know.
All the time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we might never know. That doesn't make those leaks for it in the past wrong. Because the game could have got canned, or it could be on the back burner, or maybe it's still going to come on. We just don't know. But that's the problem when you're a leaker. And this is one reason why I'm glad that I don't consider myself to be a leaker. I know some of you guys be like, oh, you're a leak and rumor channel. That's fine. You can say what you want about that. It's rumor season. It's E3 season. This is just what happens every year. But here's the thing. I'm not the direct source in any of it. I'm just trying to deliver news that, one, sounds really good. So it's positive vibes. And two, gets me excited, because I like to be excited. It's a fun feeling. And I recognize every video I make, it could all be wrong. I try to bring you what I feel are more legit sources of information, but I always know that's going to end up being wrong as well. I've had rumor videos from a month ago that have come true. I've had ones from 2 weeks ago that didn't. That's just the way it goes in this industry, and that's the way it goes for these leakers. So there is some level of sympathy people should have, because honestly, a lot of our hype, and when things come true, get us more hype. Like, say the Switch Pro stuff does come true. And I've mentioned this to a few people in the comment sections at times, where they're like, the Switch Pro is fake. I can't wait for you to apologize. What am I apologizing for? For believing or thinking these things are happening because credible people are saying them? I don't feel like I got to apologize if it doesn't happen. But I will say this, when it does happen, are those same people going to come out and apologize to us and apologize to all the commenters and all the other people that they attacked all this time saying it's fake because they didn't want to believe it, because they wanted to hold back because leakers are wrong sometimes? No, they're not going to apologize. Bottom line is pay attention to the positivity, try to ignore the negativity, and for the leakers, whether it's Samus who I know is getting a lot of flack right now, whether it's, even Nate the Hate that's gotten some at times, or, MVG is probably going to get blasted a little bit because he just doesn't think this thing is real. So, and the thing is, MVG's, the reason MVG doesn't think it's real is because he said he talked to 10 different developers, and he said none of them have even heard of this thing. 10 different developers, by the way, is a very small sample size.
I'm also partially a developer, so, what type of developer are we talking about? Are we talking
Game developers.
Like an actual AAA developer?
He said people from indie all the way to AAA.
Okay.
So he said across the spectrum.
Oh, okay.
But here's the thing.
Yeah.
When Switch, back when it was NX and there was dev units out there, even at the AAA developers, there would only be like 3 people who even knew they had a dev unit. And those were the 3 people that were porting the game to it. So it's like he could know someone, say at Ubisoft, right? Oh, I know someone at Ubisoft that worked on Mario plus Rabbids Kingdom Battle. And he said, nope, not happening. That guy might not even be working on the damn thing. So how would he even know? It could be that under wraps. Because Nintendo, this is something we know about Nintendo with hardware in general. You ever notice that we don't really ever get spec leaks for Nintendo hardware? Nintendo has some of the strictest NDAs out there. We literally have no idea what the thing's even made of until it basically comes out. And then someone, tears it apart and then you see what it is. So this is just how Nintendo does it. Nothing about this seems abnormal, guys. The abnormal thing is that we have these expectations with very, very little Nintendo hinting. There's been some Nintendo hinting. We know they're working on new hardware. Shintaro Furukawa said they are. We know last year they said there are no plans to release new hardware in 2021. When asked the same question again at an investor meeting this year, he said we don't have any plans to release hardware soon. He didn't say in 2021. He said soon. And that was back in February. Well, guess what? Soon's already come and gone at this point. We're in the summer. So, yeah, you're right. They didn't release new hardware soon. September, October, this holidays, that wasn't soon. He didn't say we're not getting it. So, you can look at words from last year compared to words from this year, and you can say you're reading too much. It's a slip of the tongue. That's fine. That's all fine. It's all plausible.
And again,
we're just pointing out that, Nintendo has done these revisions with handheld systems in particular consistently for almost 2 decades. You should be expecting this system, even if there weren't rumors. It should be expected. The Lite should have been expected. An XL, Pro, whatever, should be expected because DSi, DS Lite, DS. They did that then. And they did it with the 3DS. And now the 3DS doesn't even exist anymore. It's discontinued. This is their official home console and handheld. And they already did the handheld thing with the Lite. It only makes sense they're going to go in the opposite direction like they've done in the past.
They're definitely treating the Switch more like a handheld because think about how many color revisions we're seeing all the time, right? That's very more along the lines of how they've been treating their handheld systems.
Yep.
And obviously there's a Switch Lite and then there's a version 2.0.
Yep.
It just makes sense. This is kind of more like the new 3DS situation, right? When did 3DS come out? Was it 2011?
2011, yeah.
Yeah.
When did the new 3DS come out? 2015.
Yeah.
2015.
Yeah.
2015. About 4 years later, right? So,
It lines up.
It
lines up.
Right? Also, Switch came out in 2017. Lots of strong software. 2019, lots of strong software. Switch Lite. 2020 was a lull, same way as 2018. But then now we're in 2021. Supposedly we're getting a lot of software, right? So, maybe there's a hardware that lines up with that as well. But Nate, I hope you give me permission here. There is a super chat from Lynn D that kind of goes back to what we were talking about earlier. If you might read it out.
Go for
for
it.
you. I'm sure Nate appreciates your super chat, Lynn. But Lynn said, plus, plans change. If Nintendo decides to change its mind, that doesn't mean the information you had was wrong. It's just outdated. It just kind of goes back to what we were talking about earlier, right? About just sources and information. Going back to Emily Rogers, she told us about Mother 3 and the localization. It never happened. Nintendo themselves hasn't acknowledged the demand for a Mother 3 localization. It has not happened. That doesn't mean Emily Rogers was a hoax. She's gotten lots of flack over the years, but she's proven over time to be a very reliable person having information. Doesn't mean she always gets things right. Sometimes she gets information and what she says, and what we get ends up being slightly different, but that's just interpretation of information, right? You don't know exactly what it is until Nintendo shows it off. Another great example is the Eurogamer report about the Switch and what it was. when a lot of us saw it, a lot of us thought it was kind of dumb. Didn't make any sense. It was kind of weird. But what happened? It was exactly as Eurogamer said, but once we saw it actually presented by Nintendo, it was shown off in a different light, and all of a sudden it made a lot more sense. I guess my point here is that we get oftentimes a lot of inside information, but sometimes, plans change. Like with the Mother 3 localization, at one point Nintendo considered it, but plans fell through. So even though we got the information told to us by Emily Rogers before it was officially announced, it didn't actually materialize because plans changed, and that's kind of the risk with sort of leaking or providing rumors of actually what's going on the inside, right?
Mhm.
Another thing I want to go back to is the Star Fox Grand Prix thing. Some people are talking about it being like a troll or just a joke or something like that. Another option, even one possibility, is that maybe it was a real thing. Another option is that it was a hoax. Because guess what? Oftentimes, game companies don't like their games getting leaked. So what do? Sometimes they put out leak bait. Star Fox Grand Prix might have just been leak bait. They gave it to certain people and they fed it in a way where it seemed like it was coming from a reliable source just to find out where the leak is coming from. It's kind of an interesting analogy here, right? So like if you want to, there are some like car or repair shops, if they want to find like where there's a hole in your tire, they'll put the tire in water and they'll see where the bubble's coming from to find where the hole is, right? Well, with leaks, sometimes you put out information of like hoaxes in different places and you see where that hoax comes out from. Something like a Star Fox Grand Prix is a very weird thing. If that starts popping out, you're like, okay, so our leaks are coming from this department. That happens as well. So that's the thing with rumors. Even if it's coming from a source that you consider reliable, you have to take it with a grain of salt because there's a lot of possibilities. Plans can change. It can be a hoax. Maybe it's delayed. One great example is Skyward Sword. We've known about this for years. People thought it wasn't real, but it just took a long time before Nintendo was ready to announce it. And I think the same is going to apply for Metroid Prime Trilogy, by the way. So, just even though like all these things are really exciting, and I personally think we are getting a Switch revision announced before E3, be prepared for the possibility of that not happening. That doesn't mean Nintendo doesn't have great plans, but take everything with a grain of salt. Don't assume anything is 100% until Nintendo confirms it themselves.
Yep. We had a few more super chats I want to make sure we get to. Paul Gale Network did a $2 one earlier. Said N64 Classic or Nintendo Switch Online for the 25th anniversary. Obviously, N64 Classic or N64 coming to the... I don't know. N64 Classic, I'm really surprised they haven't even done. I don't know why they haven't done it. It feels like it would have been a no-brainer. Obviously, the reasoning was because Nintendo Switch Online, but then they haven't added it to it yet. So, I don't know. What do you guys think?
The classic line to me was Nintendo in their, oh no, we're failing mode. They were deploying so much like fun, nostalgic stuff when the Wii U wasn't doing well, including the two classic consoles. And I think the SNES Classic, that was like 2016, right?
Yeah.
And then the next year the Switch came out. And then we got no more of that. And I don't think that's a coincidence. I think that's like the backup plan type stuff. So I don't think we're going to see an N64 Classic, honestly. As much as I would love it, honestly.
Until Nintendo's failing again, and then they'll
exactly.
Do it.
Until they go, oh crap, we need something now. What can we do? Oh, N64 Classic.
So we got Brian C with a $2 super chat, and he said, and then they could show PAL running over 20 FPS. I don't know how many people even know what he's talking about there. But it's all right. Moving on to something that you guys would know what's going on. Paul Gale Network for $5 says things change. I broke news first on PlayStation All Stars Battle Royale, Street Fighter 4, Super Mario 3D World, Metal Gear Solid 5, and others. Some I got wrong info on. That's just how it goes.
Yep.
So one thing I want to do right now for this stream, because we only have 2 more podcasts until E3, guys. Can you believe it? I'm going to spend the last, I don't know, let's say half hour-ish of this stream, and I'm going to actually open the floor to people in the chat if you guys want to get some questions in on anything we talked about today or anything you're actually wondering about. All of us will probably pick out some things that we want to respond to, and we'll see what happens. So if you want to at, FiveJay Gaming in the chat, or at AndresRestart, or at Nintendo Prime, or at Emo8790, although he's not logged in, so it doesn't really matter. So just at Nintendo Prime, and he'll probably glance at mine. But he's reading the chat over there. That's one way you can obviously super chat and all that stuff to get it in, but that's not a requirement to get questions in. So I know there's a little bit of a stream delay. So while we wait, because of the stream delay, One question I'm going to throw out to you guys. What's your unannounced but most anticipated announcement at E3?
Donkey Kong.
Ooh, there it is. DK.
Like it's a close call between Metroid and Donkey Kong. I guess the difference is that the Metroid, I strongly believe, is a Metroidvania side scroller. There's a lot of special implications with that because maybe there is a Metroid Prime 4 teaser, especially with the Switch revision. Like we could see that at E3, but I'm not expecting it. But either way, the Metroid game I know is going to be a good thing. With Donkey Kong, there's a lot of question marks for that. Is it being made by the Odyssey team? Is it a side scroller? Is it 3D? Is it somewhere in between? Is this going to be like a springboard for a whole bunch of more Donkey Kong things, like the Donkey Kong expansion to the park? Maybe more with the Donkey Kong 40th anniversary. So I guess I just have more questions about the Donkey Kong thing, even though in terms of like what I want to play both Metroid and Donkey Kong a lot. I just believe Metroid is for sure going to be there. Donkey Kong, there's just a lot more questions. So that's sort of what I'm most looking forward to seeing at E3.
What about you, FiveJay?
You know, I hadn't considered the possibility of 2D Metroid before we were talking tonight, and hearing that, I really love this idea because Metroid Prime is not a continuation of the original storyline, right? It's a prequel series, I believe, right?
Mm-hmm.
And wouldn't it be awesome if we got a Metroid Prime 4 and a continuation that was left off last with Metroid Fusion, the fourth in the franchise? Could be Metroid 5. We've never had a mainline Metroid game that was not in 2D. I mean, we had Other M, which had some non-2D segments as far as gameplay. Obviously, the graphics were 3D graphics, but it was still a game that had a lot of mostly 2D gameplay to it. So, sweet. Give me Prime 4 and give me Metroid 5. I'm into it.
One question I saw in the chat to get to quick was Lauren Webb to Bone brought up the Z222 tweet. So that was something that I actually did want to bring up. I forgot who put it out there. It was the Cotton Games guy. I always forget his name.
I have the
right in front
from
of you.
our DMs earlier.
Okay.
Yeah. Dr. Sircon Toto Kanton Games. He retweeted the Nintendo of America post about their direct, and he just said 4 different characters, Z2 space 22, and then in the thread everyone's like, "Oh, Breath of the Wild 2 2022." That's what everyone sort of jumped on in the thread, which maybe, but I'm not sure if this person would know that, be privy to that information at this point. It could be speculation. It might not be. We sort of chatted a little bit about Nate, so I'll let you kind of on that.
Well, so I've been following this guy for a long time. He is a kind of a consultancy job that he lives in Japan. He's from Germany. And he does, go to investors meetings and deal with Nintendo sometimes. So could he have heard something? Maybe. It's also one of those that he's usually not very cryptic. So the fact he's being cryptic means like, is this just a prediction? Why isn't he saying more? That's really weird. Like the moment he saw that everyone assumed it was this, if it wasn't that, why didn't he correct them? I just don't think he cares. I think he's just having fun. He could be trolling people. Again, Breath of the Wild 2 might be in 2022. That's like not even that like out there of a prediction or that out there of a thing to say. So I think it just upsets people because they're hoping it's this year. I'm hoping it's this year. But I mean, I just want to know when it's coming at all. If they put up a date and say 2022, hey, at least I know I'm going to play it next year. That's cool. I just want to see. I just want to see the game. We've got a lot more questions coming in. Any of you guys spot one yet? Because that was the one I was looking at for a moment. Let's see here.
A small glizzy added you Nintendo Prime. How much storage are you hoping for?
That's a good question. We haven't talked about that.
Yeah.
I want like a minimum of 128. I don't know if they're going to do it.
I think you're dreaming.
I mean, that's 4 times what the Switch has now. But I also feel like we got to
Nintendo.
Well, we got to consider this too. It's a more powerful system. Games are going to be running at 1080p docked. Games sizes for Nintendo games have even started to grow over the years. There are third-party companies that might be making games potentially even only for Pro, not even available on the base Switch potentially, we've already seen games like NBA 2K that fill up your entire Switch. Sometimes it's not even
Mhm.
enough to play. So it's one of those. 128 is what I want, and if they're charging $399, and it's only a little bit more powerful with an OLED screen, they better give me 128. But they're
Yeah.
probably not going to.
Yeah, exactly. It makes sense to have
See,
120.
I mean, realistically, they're
But-
going to double it to 64 and call it good.
Yep.
That's the realistic bet.
Didn't they give us an 8 GB Wii U?
Yeah, and you should have bought it because
oh
that's the
my
one that's worth money, not the black one because they discontinued it like right away.
It was like 8 or 32. Like, what?
I guess the whole storage thing is something I take for granted because I have a big micro SD card in my Switch, and I
Right.
just don't worry about it at all. I guess the benefit of Switch is because they use cartridges. It's not like when you get a disc for a PlayStation or an
Yeah,
Xbox
you
where
don't
you
have to
basically
install
install
it,
the
yeah.
whole game on there. That just eats up your hard drive. Switch doesn't have that issue, so the storage space it does have goes a little bit more of a ways than other systems. But still, yeah, 32 is a small amount. If you don't have a big micro SD card, you're what many would call SOL. But that's why you get a micro SD card. Get one. You should.
Yeah.
Their prices have
Yes.
been dropping.
Yep.
You can get I'm pretty sure you can get a 400 gigabyte micro SD card for less than $50, especially if there's like a deal going on. So that's honestly my recommendation. I don't really expect there to be a lot of internal storage on the Switch revision just because, well, one, it's more expensive because it's flash memory, right? So that just raises up pricing even more. I do kind of hear your point, Nate, in terms of like because the Switch may be 4K capable, some of the games that potentially may come exclusive or may get patched onto this version of the Switch, like there's gonna be the games are gonna be bigger, so it does make sense to have more storage space. But at the same time, if we're talking about like big 4K games, like how much is 128 gonna really do for you? It
Yep,
might help, but it's
exactly.
not gonna make that much more of a difference.
Mhm.
Well, I can tell you right now, I have a 512 in my
Mm.
Switch. It's full. I'd
Yep.
gladly get an extra 100 gigs from Nintendo that I don't have to pay for. I'll take that.
Well, I think it'd be more.
Here's what I think.
likely-
Here's what I think. There needs to be. This is my personal opinion. There needs to be enough storage that there isn't a single game you can buy that you can't put on it digitally. And right now, there's games you can buy that don't fit on the Switch digitally. You have to buy an SD card. Now, I think the games are going to be even bigger. 64 might not be enough. So then, where's the natural evolution from that? Well, it's 128. You don't just patch on another 32. If you know anything about how chips are made and then how they're arranged on a board, that's why things increase the way that they do. The next increase would be 128. So that's why another reason why I want it to happen. Now, again, is it going to happen? No. Is it possible they leave it at 32, but then they decide to toss in a 128 micro SD card in every single box? Possibly. They do work with micro SD card manufacturers, and as you said, well, 400 for under 40. So how much is it going to really cost them to throw a 128 micro in with it? Got to remember, they did it with what, the 3DS, threw a 4 gig in with you? So it's not like they haven't given you free, storage before in that way. So that's another possibility to throw out there that, okay, if they don't increase it, well, they can at least pack in enough that you might not need to buy one right away, But again,
Right.
this is also Nintendo, so I mean, it'll probably go the opposite direction. We're gonna get 16 gigs in the next one.
Yeah, exactly. You never know.
There's no storage at all. No local storage. You have to buy your own storage.
Yeah, and you don't really get the option of the USB hard drives because, of course, you unplug it from the dock. Oops, there goes my connection to the hard drive.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder, though, if they would be so bold as to give us 2 micro SD card slots.
That's interesting.
'Cause then you'd
Yeah.
have, 2.
I like
12s.
that.
I mean,
And-
if you're gonna
and-
have that big flap, there's plenty of space to put other things under there. Why not put 2 slots?
Exactly.
And here's the thing: I never thought about 2 slots until I got my new camera. That you guys are seeing me on right now. This camera has 2 SD card slots, and it didn't even cross my mind that you could do something like this. It's like I always knew about it, but I never owned anything that did it, and now I do. And it's like, why? The Switch should have like 3 of these, 4. Why? Why limit it? Like, if you could fit it on the board, give me as many slots as you could fit. Screw it.
GameCube has 2 memory card slots. Just throwing that out there.
Yeah, right? Like, it makes so much sense. It makes so much sense. Small Glizzy also asked, "Are you wishing for different themes like backgrounds?" I personally don't care.
I gave up.
I don't spend enough.
Themes.
Yeah, I don't spend enough time on the home screen to care about themes.
right.
I want folders. I want organizational
Folders.
things.
Yes.
Yes.
I want that. I'm okay without themes. I know it was kind of cool to have them on 3DS for a while, but
I kind of expected them to add themes and more personality to the Switch because it felt like a system that they got the bare minimum out there to make it perform quickly and people would be happy with that. But it had none of the personality of the previous Nintendo handhelds. So the fact that we haven't had that sort of personality update in 4 years, it's not coming.
okay, just so Latchlin M stops spamming in the chat and getting banned because he's going to eventually do it because he spammed this question, I think, 40 times in the last hour. We'll finally address it. We've already addressed it once. I guess I kind of addressed it. I'll let you guys address it. What did MVG mean by his tweet about the whole...
Prepare for disappointment.
Yeah, prepare for disappointment. I'll let you guys answer it because I kind of went off on a spiel on it earlier.
Oh, I mean, I don't know. Like you don't know. Like it's not like a report necessarily, right? Like it could be him saying, "Oh, I saw something, and you guys aren't going to like it." It could mean nothing's happening tomorrow. It could mean that he's just trying to caution people from getting overly excited. There's a lot of that. A lot of people like to sort of try and contain excitement, so they put out things like, "Hey, it's not happening," or "Hey, prepare to be disappointed." Some people kind of just operate by expect disappointment and get surprised afterwards. Like that's a possibility. So I don't know. There's too many like variables in terms of interpreting what he said. So I guess we'll just see what happens tomorrow. It kind of goes back to what we were talking about earlier. We don't know what's actually going to happen until it happens. You can think with great confidence, right? But you can never actually know. So
Right.
we'll see what happens tomorrow. I think it makes sense for Nintendo to announce something tomorrow, but also it doesn't mean it's the only way they can get things done. So we'll see.
Right. I think he's just confident that it's not going to be announced without necessarily having any information. Like almost everyone here is confident it's getting announced, but none of us are actual insiders. Like we don't actually have inside information, but we're all still confident. I think he's just the reverse of that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and you've said that he's kind of a denier that it's even happening. So he's just probably hedging his bets so that if it doesn't happen tomorrow, he can say, "Look, I told you so." You know, it's I told you. It's
it
all
can
right
also
here.
be one of those that ever since some of these retailers have kind of come out and we've seen that $3.99 price floated out there, there's been some people that have been like, really, $3.99? That's a lot of money that people don't have for a system that is probably going to be significantly weaker than a PlayStation 5, which is also $3.99 for an all digital version. So there is a lot of people that are like, man, I also look at it as it's going to be sold out day one anyways. Nintendo knows it. They know they're not going to keep enough stock of it anyways. They'll charge as much as they think they can charge for it and make as much money as they can while they can, and they'll lower the price later like they did with the 3DS back in the day when they took advantage of day one sales, and then it kind of fell off, and then they lowered the sales and got it back again because they already have two other models that are selling incredibly well. If people aren't interested in spending $400, God forbid, $500 on the thing, they don't have to. They got other options. So I think I hope that Nintendo. I mean, I was a big believer in $349 for a while, but it's also, you know what? If this thing has the specs in it that I want it to have, it's going to be at least $400. So I don't know.
Right.
So it could be one of those tweets where he's like, "Yeah, it'll get announced, but you're not going to like it."
Right.
That could be another option.
So we'll see
Hey,
what happens.
Nate.
Yeah, what's up?
So, when is the discussion ending? Because it's something I want to say.
Oh
But
boy.
I kind of like the idea of just dropping the bomb and ending the podcast with that.
Oh
It's
my
not-
god.
It's not. I don't think it's anything that you'd have to make a whole video about. It's just kind of like maybe hype inducing.
Yeah, but I like hype inducing, so I'll probably end up making
Right.
a video about
Can I
it.
go
I mean, okay,
once?
I don't want
Eric,
to play it up that much.
Eric wants to
but
say something. Hold on.
Hold on. Can I go 1 second before you, Andres?
do it.
Sorry,
Do it.
I just want to get a game in because I never got a game in on that
Sure,
one discussion
sure.
here. So we know that there's a possibility of Kirby games coming out.
Yeah.
One of them is going to be Kirby's Dream Course 2.
Dream Course 2. Okay.
Ooh,
Okay.
nice.
Okay.
Or an updated Dream Course.
He's predicting, by the way. He doesn't actually know.
No, obviously.
Right.
Yeah.
That's great though. A
ta-
fan classic.
Taker6 did a $2 super chat and said Schrodinger's Switch
Yeah.
Pro.
Yeah.
Is there really a Switch
I like it.
Pro? Is there not?
Right.
Oh, so Andres, I gotta say, do you want to drop it right at the end and then we end, or
I mean, we
do you,
could,
you want us to
I
sign
guess-
out first, or do you want to like drop it and then sign out?
I mean, like, I guess, like, I could just say it, and if it's like just a couple minutes before, like, it's again, I don't want to overhype it. It's just a little thing that might excite some people.
I mean, if it's something that's gonna excite people, it's never little. There's so you know my audience, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
we can set it over Kirby games, so come on now.
we share a similar audience, so I know. All right, I'll just tell you. All right, so I just thought about it because FiveJay was talking about how we're not insiders, right? And I'm not an insider either. Like, again, occasionally people might tell me things, and I might trust them, I might not trust them. I don't really make videos.
He's
on
about to
anything.
drop some inside information. Here we go.
I'm not told anything. I don't make videos about what people tell me. I make videos about what's public information, and if I heard something that sort of confirms it or validates it, I might mention it. And that's pretty much it. So this is a very little thing, but on Thursday, was it? Yeah, so on Thursday we had the Pokemon news. Nate, you and I talked about the whole Splatoon 3 thing. We kind of broke that together. And then there was a Switch Pro report. So that all happened in one day. So I messaged a friend of mine, and I said, shit is getting wild, laughing my ass off. And my friend responds, and it's going to get better. Haha. That's it. All I can tell you is that's it. So this friend of mine, I can tell you I trust very, very, very much. So, if on Thursday we got the release dates for the Pokemon games, there was the rumors about the Splatoon 3 thing, and there's a Switch Pro report, and then I talk about it with him very briefly, as I literally told you verbatim. I just said shit's getting wild, and he's like, and it's gonna get better. That gets me excited. So, we'll see what happens. But I'm excited for what's to come. Even if Switch Pro is not real, I imagine the Direct is gonna have some good games.
I apologize for the heat that's coming your way tomorrow. I totally apologize. I'm gonna literally clip this out and be like, look, I like Andres. This is what he says. I'm not gonna give you any information on who his source is. I'm just telling you right now, this is legit. Shit's about to get wild. Let's go. It's going nuts. It's about to get worse. Or better. Depends on how you view it. In my case, it's really, really good because it gives you really good content to make. But it also gets really, really bad because it also, like this Switch Pro stuff, what sucks as a content creator? You guys are like, oh, pre-order. I'm like, I got to be around to make the news. I got to like keep my availability open to get a news. Like, I'm like, okay, let me make sure I'm not too far away from my house. Make sure I'm not too far away from this. I guess I got to head on down to make sure I'm not getting too deep in some big art project with my kids because I might have to walk away and they're going to destroy the house while I try to take an hour to throw together a video. So
Are they going to pop paint balloons like your sister did?
basically, oh my God, let's not go there. My hype level just rose a couple points for tomorrow.
Why not?
And that scares me.
I don't know if it's related to tomorrow.
I know you don't know that.
Yeah.
I don't, we said it's going to get better. Now that could just be E3.
Yeah.
Could be E3. Maybe we're gonna get what we want, or some wild stuff happen. Or,
Breath of the Wild.
I don't know. I mean, you don't know. You don't know. It's
like
just
drop during.
it's
E3.
already getting wild.
Just be for the announcement we got today.
But like that's not even that wild. Let's just be honest.
Right.
We're glad we now know when Nintendo's doing E3, but we got nothing out of that announcement.
That's not wild.
The announcement was basically, we're at E3 and this is the day we're there. I'm just throwing that out there. Like, that's not... I mean, that makes things better. How? We already knew they were at E3. And we know just as much today about what they're doing at E3 as we knew yesterday.
Yep.
Oh, they're doing Treehouse again. Okay, we got like yeah. Okay. Oh, they're doing a 40-minute direct. Okay, like they do every direct. Okay, cool. What? Any hint? No. Any like subtle imagery? Any like logo? Any like logo we could find like somewhere in their little art thing that maybe hints at
Nothing. That's
No.
the other interesting thing. Normally they give us a focus.
yeah,
They
and
announce
nothing.
no focus.
That's what I'm saying. Like,
Nothing.
and again, was that like Crenus because the focus is going to be announced with the Switch Pro? I have no idea.
Oh, this is
The other interesting
fantastic.
thing is that where was it
Whoa.
that we saw?
Nothing,
that
I'm just
both Nintendo and
enjoying this.
Microsoft are the pinnacle.
There's no bigger fan of the
Nintendo.
podcast than Eric. He just said, "I'm just really enjoying this conversation." As he doesn't say anything, he's just sitting back. You guys are all at home, and he's here in person. Like, this is great. This is great. All right, go on, go on.
No, I was just kind of pointing out that it's weird that they're not specifying at all. They normally specify something. Why?
Because
It's
they
very
have
strange.
nothing. It's going to
Yeah.
be you being the
Maybe.
cynic. It's going to be a very disappointing E3. All third-party games, a couple 2D stuff, and people are just going to walk away
Yeah,
pissed,
we're gonna
and they
get-
know it.
We're gonna get the sequel to the
Pac-Man
3D
versus
Kirby
remake.
Switch. That we're gonna get Donkey Kong 44. It's
I
just
mean-
gonna be the red girder old Donkey Kong game
I-
with more Mario.
I love this username, Qwerty the Birdie. The $2 super chat said, "Hi Nate, how would you like an ARM sequel at E3?" We did talk about that briefly earlier. That was something that FiveJay brought up. But it'd be funny if like that's their big announcement. Our big thing for E3 is an ARM sequel, and it's like, yeah, okay, yeah, we're gonna be pretty disappointed if that's like the big thing. As awesome as it would be to get one, it's like, but that's a game that sold 2 million. A sequel to that, that's your big type game for the holidays. Alrighty then. Well, I'll see you for Pokemon Legends Arceus on January 28th of next year.
So I just want to point out, like, my personal predictions, which can totally be wrong. Okay.
They're wrong. They're probably wrong.
Yeah, probably.
If
but
I had to put a 5 spot down, you're wrong.
I think the Metroid game's coming out August or September. I also think Breath of the Wild 2 is coming out late October. We're gonna get the Pokemon game November. December might have another game. Not sure what that'll be. Could be Bayonetta 3, maybe not. January we get Legends Arceus.
Monolith Sauce
March
new
we get
game.
Splatoon 3. That's another option.
Oh.
I don't think we get
Or
Bayonetta
a
3 and
Xenoblade.
Monolith Sauce game.
Could be a
One or the
Xenoblade.
other.
Maybe a
One of
Fire Emblem?
those.
Fire Emblem remake.
Well, the other thing is that maybe I could also see a situation where maybe a Kirby game or Mario Party are thrown into like September or August. Also, it's not necessarily one game per month. We could see 2 games per month, like every 3 weeks. It's like kind of like that. Just look at 2019. That's a good sort of like perhaps mold of what we should sort of expect between, I guess, I mean, from now even all the way up until March. Like we could be getting at least one major Nintendo published game per month, but in some cases, maybe more than that. But if that happens, if we get something along those lines, like if we get Breath of the Wild 2, Legends Arceus, Splatoon 3, and a couple other things like maybe a Fire Emblem, a Donkey Kong, and a Metroid, which is probably a lot. Maybe we shouldn't expect all that. But if that somehow all gets out, even remove one of those things out of there, it's still really good by March 2022. Myself personally, I'm going to be a very, very happy gamer. That's a lot for me to enjoy between now and then. There's probably going to be other I mentioned that it'll be somehow be in that lineup. I think it's gonna be really good.
We'll see. We'll see.
Yeah.
All right. I think we're going to wrap things up here. I want to thank everyone who came out tonight. This was actually a record number of people at a live podcast. So thank you guys for setting a new live record for the podcast. Who knows what it'll actually be when all the views are all said and done and all the post views. But thank you guys so much for coming in. We obviously are super hyped. The next podcast episode, by the way, guys, will not be next week, Wednesday. It's actually going to be on Tuesday. We have a special guest coming on, Camelot 331. That's the day that he can make it. So we're going to kind of adjust things and make it work for him, which kind of works out because it gives me a buffer day before Summer Games Fest. So it's kind of nice to have a little buffer in there, which you guys know I'll probably be streaming anyways. But either way, I don't have to worry about trying to put together a show for it and having the kind of technical difficulties I have anytime anyone's on my set but me. So that's another thing I don't have to necessarily worry about. Maybe I'll have multiple camera angles for that show as well, just of me. and the many sides of Nate, the many faces of Nate. I should put a
Look over
mask
here.
on. I should put a
Look over
mask
here.
on the side of my head,
Look over there.
and like that's what the different cameras go hit the different masks up. I don't know. Anyways, I want to thank all of you guys for tuning in. All of our audio listeners, I do apologize. I know I've been a bit late getting the audio ones out, and the problem with getting the audio one out now is that if Switch Pro's announced tomorrow, 75% of this podcast just became irrelevant. But that's just the way it is when we're in the midst of breaking news. At least we started off the podcast with E3 talk, which we are likely not going to have verified one way or another at least at this point tomorrow. So shout out to obviously our special guests who are here. AndresRestart, you can go follow him on Twitter and on YouTube. I have links to both of those down in the description. If you guys want to go over there, subscribe to him. I would really love to see him hit 10,000 subscribers before E3. He's getting close. Let's keep pushing it, guys.
Yeah.
Just like I want to get to 70K, let's get him to 10K. Let's get him to that next level. FiveJay doesn't really do much anymore, except I guess occasionally come on the podcast when I ask him to.
Yeah.
So I have links to his stuff as well down below, just in case you liked him and in case you
Check
ever
out my legacy playthroughs and stuff.
and you never know. He might do some random stream, some random day in the future. You never know. It is what it is.
Promises.
No promises. And you can follow at emo8790 on Twitter. That is where Eric is at, so you can check him out over there. He will read anything you tweet at him. He will not respond to you.
Yeah.
Oh, wait, you've been responding? Wait, breaking news.
No, I haven't.
You told me you haven't
responded to anybody.
responded to anyone
I
in
haven't
a year.
responded to anybody.
And I know you've been tweeted a few times because I'm always included in it for
I know
some
you are.
reason. Well, because they only know you because you're here.
I never said I wouldn't respond. I just
Yeah, but he's not going to respond.
Probably not,
So
you
I'm
can
not
still-
saying I
you can
won't
still tweet at me.
respond. I just don't.
eh,
Oh man. And shout out to obviously all the people who super chatted tonight. Thank you so much for that. I'm not going to go back through all of those because not all of them are actually listed here. But thank you, and thank you to everyone for just tuning in. I hope you had a great time. Be sure to go check out what AndresRestart's got his podcast coming up on every single Sunday night. So you should definitely go check that out. He has actually tried to get me on a number of times. It's just really hard for me to make Sundays. I'm sure I could let him know any Sunday I'm available, and he'll probably make room. Don't kick anyone out.
What
Okay.
about the pre-Sunday, the pre-E3 Nintendo E3 Direct Sunday?
You mean this upcoming one?
Is it really this? Is it that
Yeah.
soon already?
yes, it is.
Yeah. E3's like 10 days away. Yeah.
Yeah.
This upcoming weekend is the weekend before E3.
Well, the 13th technically is the Sunday before Nintendo's Direct.
Yeah. Oh,
No.
okay. So I can tell you this. On that Sunday, I'm literally the 12th, 13th, 14th, 15th. My whole life is just E3. So I probably can make some time for it as long as E3's done by then. God knows when it's even going to be done. But if it's done by then, probably make some time to squeeze that one in.
I feel like either the 6th, 13th, or 20th, one of those 3 Sundays, we might be able to make it work.
So what he's saying is, I need to tell Yulia to buzz off for a whole night because on one of my weekends, on one of her weekends off, and be like, "Yeah, sorry, I got to go spend the evening with AndresRestart. We got a lovely candlelit dinner planned.
Hey.
Yeah. You want to make him? I'm gonna make him my famous tacos.
You even got that candle over there in the shot glass.
That's right. Oh, now you did it. Now
I
the
did.
candle's gonna come on set when I'm with him. I'm gonna light up the Triforce of candles. Let your whole audience stare at it and let them know this one's for Andres. This one's for Andres last week, and this one's for Andres next week since he's trying to get me on 3 Sundays in a row. Let me just
One of them,
light,
at least.
let me
Maybe.
light it up. So yeah, I know I've also been talking with my fiance. I said I wanted to try to. It'd be cool if I could try to make a once a month on yours. It'd be really nice to get on because you've been on mine a number of times, and I have a good time. And I know you have other guests on yours as well. That'd be good to get some additional conversation. It's nice to be on other people's channels and get in front of a new audience too. You know, I know we have some crossover, but not everybody. When I check out your streams when I have time, dude, there's people here I don't know who the hell you guys are. Heck, I'm looking at my stream right now. There's people I don't know who the heck any of you guys are. So thank you for tuning in. I wish I knew every single one of you. I wish I had the time to get to know every single one of you. All right, well, that's going to do it. Thank you so much for tuning in to episode 11 of the Nintendo Prime Podcast. The audio version's available whenever I put it up, but also wherever you want to listen to it. Spotify, iTunes, anywhere you want it at, it's going to be there. I'll try to get it up tomorrow. No guarantees, because if we have a bunch of breaking Switch Pro stuff happening tomorrow, you know what my day is going to be spent doing? Breaking the news and attempting to pre-order one. So, so anyways, thank you guys for tuning in, and we'll catch you same time, but next week, Tuesday, instead of Wednesday. Bye. And yeah.